The Phantasmagorium show proudly presents Guns, Martinis, Gadgets, and Guns. It's been a while since I've said that. 60 years, 25 films, 6 actors, 1 007. Straddling 2 centuries and 2 millennia, the greatest spy in the history of cinema celebrates an anniversary. We're not talking about the books. The 70th will be next year. Today, we celebrate the release of 1962's Dr. No, starring the first man to don the tux, Sir Sean Carnera. Sir Sean Connery. It wouldn't be a Martinis, Gadgets, and Guns if I didn't mess up the intro. Followed by Roger Moore, George Lazenby, Roger Moore, Timothy Dalton, Pierce Brosnan, and Daniel Craig. Today we celebrate James Bond. My name is Scotty R37. My opposite number cat is here. Our quartermaster for the mission is Tony Bunyan Snipe. And Steve never came back from Crab Key. How are you guys today?
Not too bad, getting there.
I'm overly excited, clearly. Heavens.
Lest we forget Barry Nelson from who also played Jimmy Bond.
Yeah.
David Niven. Peter Sellers. What are your thoughts on the adjacent James Bonds? I want to get those out of the way, like the Barry Nelson, Casino Royale.
Don't forget Bob Holness. Bob Holness played James Bond in a South African radio production.
And Toby Stevens as well.
And Toby Stevens, the longest running James Bond.
Absolutely. There are. Who is your favorite?
Of the unofficial Bonds?
Let's start there.
Probably David Niven.
Oh no, it's got to be Woody Allen. No.
Well, he was Jimmy, but he was. Now, see, thing is, yeah. So yeah, well, he was Jimmy, but he wasn't the same Jimmy that was in the TV Casino Royale. He was a different Jimmy. Jimmy, yeah.
Oh, you mean Barry Nelson as Jimmy is your favorite? Yeah. Okay.
Oh no! I'm just saying that Woody Allen's Jimmy wasn't the same Jimmy as Barry Nelson's Jimmy.
No, not at all. I don't know. I think that Peter Sellers, I liked him. He was probably my favorite of the non-canon.
Yeah, you can't really go wrong with Peter Sellers unless you meet him in real life.
Unless you're Britt Eklund.
Yeah, or anyone really, anyone that
daughters.
Is Peter Sellers the only James Bond to actually marry a Bond girl?
But not his Bond girl, though, right?
No, not his Bond girl. Oh, no, that's not true, because Pierce Brosnan was also married to the lady who was killed in For Your Eyes Only, right?
That's right.
His first wife was in For Your Eyes Only, so that's a James Bond married to a Bond girl. She had to be a character if she was killed.
Was that Neve Cusack?
I don't remember her name.
No, it's gone. It's gone. I'm not sure if it is Neve Cusack, but yeah.
There's so much to celebrate.
There is. But I suppose it has to happen at some point, doesn't it?
Well, less people have been on the moon than have been James Bond, and even lesser than that have there been James Bond that have actually married Bond girls. So it's of note. I think it's worthy of celebration. Thank you, Ian Fleming. You made love happen. Speaking of love and James Bond, I love the fact that we're not sponsored by Amazon Prime, but they're all available on Amazon now. All 25?
Yeah, and some of that in several countries, but it said for a limited time, and I take it that's for certain countries won't get it for very long, but I assume that the UK and the US will continue to have them. I mean, I don't see why not at this point now that Amazon owns MGM.
Makes sense.
But I got my nice Bond 50 set up there to compensate for that, and then I also made sure to pick up the Craig 4K box set for good measure.
Oh, nice.
It is a little bit alarming though that the James Bond franchise is owned by a literal Bond villain. Right?
Yes,
True.
agreed. I find it ironic, but also I hope that they like Everything or Nothing Productions appreciates the fact that Bond fans will always have a sort of tinge towards the sentimental and the nostalgic, and that they continue to have physical media. If they're, if they want to sell 4K players and 4K TVs, then they should have something that makes it the complete reason why. Because even with streaming, as you know, it's not going to be the best fidelity. It's not going to be the best sound. Physical media is the way to go. And I hope that is their owning of one of the biggest franchises in history gives me hope to the future of physical media.
Yeah, I was hoping that there would be like an announcement of some kind today of that, and there wasn't.
I'm looking forward to the new ViewMaster. Click. Click.
The HTC Vive? Oh my God, what if they had a VR GoldenEye? They remake the N64 game.
Ah, yeah. No, I had an inner ear infection last week. I've had my share of nausea over the last couple of weeks. Thank you very much.
That is a very good point. That is a very good point.
CED cassette copy from 1981.
Yeah.
I
was never really good at it, but I enjoyed it, and I did finish it. The N64 one. Anyway.
Oh, yeah.
It's great.
But whenever I got on like screens like this, when there were 3 players, never any good.
Yeah, I played that again on a friend's N64 like 3 or 4 years ago, and we've become so used to modern control systems that it's like, oh, hang on, that does that. I mean, so you go forward and back, but there's no strafing. No, there's strafing, but there's no turning, and it's, oh god. But yeah, it was a thing. Yeah.
Yes. Oh, but so much fun. And also, oh yeah, but that controller was unwieldy.
I think N64 you could strafe if you hit the right yellow arrow key button.
Oh my god, there were so many buttons on that controller.
It's been a long time since I played. I still have my N64 console, and I recently got an adapter so I could hook it up to my smart TV if I ever want to play those games again.
I'm wondering if they. I got the. I know this is fascinating. But I got the Daniel Craig remaster of GoldenEye, and they change things, but it's for modern gaming. I think it's on the Xbox 360.
Yeah, I got that.
Yeah, it's great. It's really fun to play it again with sort of modern controls but yet familiar.
I heard there's going to be yet another remaster or re-release next year. I think it is, or of some time. So. And again, they're always going to go back to that for the nostalgia, because that's the first-person shooter, which changed first-person shooters.
Yeah, it's the Carrot Top edition.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, what else? Heavens, I was supposed to go get the numbers for the James Bond auction that happened just last week.
Yeah. Speaking of news, they did have an auction. They auctioned off 20 items at first on the live auction, and then they had an online auction continuing through today. I was surprised at some of the stuff they were letting go, stuff they've had in the archives. Some of it's very recent. A lot of it was No Time to Die related. I guess they didn't want to hang on to it. It was a charity auction, so that's good.
Yeah. Well, the auctioneer was actually bidding against himself at one point.
Who was?
The auctioneer was
bidding
right. for the photographs, and
that was funny. And Michael G. Wilson says this is the 4th such auction they've done. I'm not sure how many of the other iconic things they've gotten rid of, but they auctioned off Staffan's Broken Mask this time. They auctioned off a lot of the cars. And none of the classic ones, though, I've noticed, unless they've done that presumably in the
no, they did an Aston Martin this year. Oh, well, they did the Aston Martin from
No Time to Die.
No Time to Die, yeah.
It sold for £2.4 million.
Yep.
How much is that in American? I won't ask you for the conversion to Canadian, because that's ridiculous.
2.7 now?
That's it?
Like that, a little higher maybe.
That's it.
No, well, 10 years ago, it would have been about 3.5, but now it's it's about 2.7, 2.8. I would have thought.
Well,
The auction, it was pretty fun to see. They had a lot of people gathered there for it from the different movies and such. They let's see, they also sold, let me look it up here because I just lost the placing for it. But other news, Barbara and Michael gave interviews saying, like, they said it's going to be probably another 2 years before they even start filming the next movie. And I don't know how much of that time they're going to spend trying to figure out what they actually want to do for the
Plot.
well, for the direction they want to take the story in general.
Yeah. I mean, the world. I mean, the world's changed again. I mean, obviously, since when Daniel Craig came in 2006, the world had changed a lot from just a decade before, and it's changed again. I mean, there is stuff in Casino Royale that you probably couldn't do now because things moved along so quickly. Certainly,
Such as?
Well,
one of the best things about James Bond movies is that they are of their time.
Yeah, no, exactly. I mean, I think actually a lot of stuff in fact, it's kind of the other way around. It would probably be a bit more extreme now. The torture scene with the chair would probably you'd probably see some testicle action there. Nowadays.
I don't
it'd be like
know.
A punch bag. Yeah. But I think it'd be.
Just if I may interrupt,
Right.
just to well, okay, so James Bond does have a formula as a movie series. When you go into it, you expect something, and it is sort of a pioneer in terms of an action movie. But it also, again, is of its time, so it wants to excite audiences. It wants to bring it in. James Bond is, by this time, known to be, he's an action hero. He always wins. He's got gadgets, and he always gets ladies. That's James Bond, right?
Yeah.
And so that is what's going to be presented. But also, it is, since Harry Saltzman and Cubby Broccoli, it has been an attempt to make money. And the way you do that is through the widest audience you possibly can. You want to appeal to the original fans, but you also want to make sure that as many butts in seats are there, because that's part of it. James Bond is also money.
Yeah. I mean, and again, in Skyfall, there was a sort of a tongue-in-cheek suggestion that Bond had flirtations with other men. That if they made that now, he would get a full-on sex scene with another guy, probably.
I think it would lean more to innuendo, but I agree.
I don't know. I don't know.
If they couldn't even do it in Brokeback Mountain.
I don't think.
But that was nearly 20 years ago. Don't forget.
Fair enough. I'm a prude.
I don't think they would go that far because
No,
even
maybe.
Barbara put her foot down saying that, like Bond shouldn't be a woman either. We're not going to push it in that direction. And as such, I don't think they're going to rob him of the fact that he's a womanizer, which is a key part of the character. It's like, they may refine it so it's not as cringy as some of the older movies were, but
it would still be a womanizer. It would still be a womanizer.
Exactly.
But he would just do the same with everyone.
Yeah.
He would be an equal opportunity womanizer.
So I found some of the other
Personizer.
Well, and don't forget, in GoldenEye, they address that directly in terms of the transition of the social mores.
Yeah.
That's true. That was
Sorry,
fun.
Kat, you were saying.
I tracked down the numbers for the auction.
Nice.
So they did auction off this one, the V8 Vantage Volante from No Time to Die.
Nice.
This is the Corgi model. It sold for £500,000, the one that was in the film. They sold, the Saffin's Broken Mask sold for £85,000. And I have the replica here, actually, from Factory Entertainment.
Nice.
You notice this one's kind of nice. It doesn't look exactly the same because you see that the mask isn't as broken over as it is in the film, and the eye socket is not as damaged in the same way, which is interesting. Maybe they just decided to change it for maybe the ease of construction or something. But that sold with this whole pre-title sequence costume for £85,000, which I thought was quite a lot. I thought they would hold on to that longer than just 3 years, and it's already on the auction block. It's like, okay.
Mm-hmm.
They sold the DBS Superleggera, which was Nomi's car, which is only in that one scene for or 2 scenes for £320,000. They sold 2 Omega Seamaster watches that signed by George Lazenby from Her Majesty's Secret Service for £95,000.
Wow.
And they even sold the Fabergé egg from Octopussy.
How much did that go for? All the money?
£260,000.
Was that the first time Bond became associated with Omega? Because
It might be.
because before that it was always Rolex, and it was
Right.
Rolex in the books as well.
Right.
Seamaster was the Omega one, right? It was
Yeah, Omega is the Seamaster brand that they've been using for the longest time.
I don't know the Rolex brand from the books.
But they also sold. I was surprised they sold the Fabergé egg though. I imagine that they only had like maybe a couple of those but for it to go for 260, it was gorgeous, and I was surprised that they let that one go. But they also sold Q's jet boat from the pre-title sequence of The World Is Not Enough.
Wait. I don't even like Octopussy. You can go back and check out our review on Martinis, Gadgets, and Guns about Octopussy. I don't like Octopussy. But I still would have paid all of the money to buy the Octopussy Fabergé egg at an auction. That is priceless. I want to win that. I don't even like Octopussy, but I would have that. And it's like, how much did that cost you? 2 legs and a kidney.
Yes, and you can you can live the auction scene from the movie by sitting there and bidding on it and jacking up the price. That would be a great replica if they were ever to make one. It's like, if you're paying attention, Eon. The Q's jet boat from the pre-title sequence, The World Is Not Enough, sold for £100,000. That would be something. And then the Triumph Scrambler 1200cc motorcycle that Bond rides sold
I saw that one, yeah.
£10,000. Which is quite a lot. And there were 36 more lots that were only going to be online through today. And they made a point of being very happy about what they sold and how much they made for charities. And they had different people who were going to benefit from those charities giving up and giving speeches. And then they sold, the production photographs, as you mentioned. I was like, oh, okay, but that was that was still really neat. And then I'm assuming that the DB5 they sold from the movie would be perhaps the hero one, like this one that had the
guns on it,
all the bullets and the guns on it, and all the damage to the windshield.
No. The thing is, now, is it an original DB5 or is it a kit car?
So the one that does all the crazy stunts in the movie is a BMW with a DB5. Probably fiberglass body on top of it, I'm guessing.
Yeah.
But they use like 6 or 7 different Aston Martins. So I assume one of them would be like the hero car that might have been a real one. I know in 2020, the Aston Martin actually did make replicas. I can't remember how many. There weren't very many of them, but they made replica cars that they sold for like 200,000 or something like that. That were that year, 1 year only. But because they didn't show the picture of when they were talking about the DB5, they showed various pictures of it, but the pictures went back and forth from the one that was damaged to the way it looked when they first get in the car in the sequence. So I'm not sure what it looks like, in terms of like the version they sold. But I assume it would have to be one of the real ones if it's going for that much money, rather than the kit car. Because they also sold some of the Land Rovers. There were the Land Rover that Bond's driving in the chase sequence in that movie. It's like, okay.
Yeah, me too. I was like, Land Rover.
It was the Submariner. The
Rolex?
The classic Rolex, James Bond Rolex, was a Submariner.
Thank you.
And that was in the first 3 books and in the first 2 or 3 Connery movies, I think.
Yeah.
Well, the luminous dial activates the Geiger counter, so thank heavens for that. I just want to say hello to the chat and everyone who's here. Thanks for being here. Edge of Time, Oop-Ack, and Paddywhack to you. Simone is here. Simone! Martinis, Gadgets, and Gun is y'all's on past my bedtime greetings all trophy. And I assume that trophy goes to the James that is Bond. Anti-Derivative Jill is here. Hi, Jill. Hey. Todd Michael is here. Hey, Todd Michael.
Yeah, Todd Michael.
Also, everybody in the chat, if you have like a favorite James Bond or a favorite James Bond movie, I can probably go and figure out how to do a poll while these guys are talking for a bit.
Oh,
So, but I don't know. I can do a poll for the. You want me? Should I do a poll for the best James Bond?
Go for it.
All right. Let's see how many things I can put in the poll.
Another thing Michael Wilson mentioned during the auction is that this version of the Unbroken Mask is in their archive and will not be going up for auction at any time, apparently. They're just going to keep that to themselves. And
Okay.
this is a very screen-accurate version. That one's pretty cool.
oh yeah.
That one is... Oh, man. I like how that captures the Dalek face of it. But let's see. Other news. Well, we did lose Monty Norman in July, who originated the theme.
Yeah.
News-wise, I found it interesting that, there's so many tabloids which always go on about who the next Bond is going to be. The odds have just increased for X and that. Well, Barbara and Michael never talk about this stuff, but when they gave their interview recently, for the first time ever, they actually mentioned Idris Elba. Because I guess the interviewer asked him about him specifically, and they said, well, yeah, he would be really great, but they're like, we want somebody who's going to make like a 12-year commitment.
Yeah.
And so we're looking for somebody probably in their early 30s, which made me think that, well, the fact that she agrees that Idris would be really good, I figured some of the best Bond villains are reflections of Bond.
Well, as I said before, I mean, if they can't get Idris Elba to play Bond, they should get him to play Willie Garvin opposite Anna de Armas in a Modesty Blaze movie, or just make 3 movies back to back, a trilogy. I think it'd be awesome, and he'd be great. He'd be great in that role.
Yeah, for sure.
And she would be a fantastic Modesty Blaze. But of course, it's probably never going to happen. But
Yeah, I just thought that was really interesting because they never go out of their way to mention specific actors. Like recently, like it's been known that it was said that Clive Owen was in the running back when Daniel Craig got the role, but recently Clive Owen said, actually, I was never approached. So they may have considered him, but they never actually brought him in for an audition. So I thought, okay, that's kind of surprising. And even though Barbara and Michael say they haven't started their search yet, I don't really believe that, because other than Sean and George, all the other actors they've been looking at for years in advance.
Well,
so I'm pretty sure they already have an idea of who they want to play the role, even if they haven't approached him yet.
Well, one of the classic stories goes back to 1981 and 81. Yeah, I think it was for Octopussy. And Lewis Cott. So there's a big TV show in the UK called The Professionals, and it was a kind of a buddy cop TV series. It was really fun. It was a really fun show, and one of the stars, Lewis Collins, had an audition to play Bond, and and Cubby Broccoli turned him down. He said, you've got sort of like a thuggish energy, and sort of 25 years later, and Daniel Craig is basically kind of sort of channeling that sort of intensity, and we could have had that in 1982, but they got cold feet and they just carried on with Roger Moore for another 2 movies, and it kind of petered out.
Yeah, they didn't have. Apparently, they were hoping he would retire after Moonraker, and then they didn't have the, like you said, they were too timid to actually ask him to step aside or to fire him, and so they just like, oh, he's coming back again. Oh, because I believe also around there in 1981 they asked Dalton again because they assumed it was like to them a foregone conclusion that Roger wasn't going to want to come back, but then when he did, it's like, oh, we can't ask him to. So they just brought him back again, and then again, and then again.
Yeah, Lewis Collins would have been amazing. He did a film a couple of years because he was in Wild Geese 2, and then he was in a film, not a great movie, but it was kind of a fun movie called Who Dares Wins, and it was a guy from the SAS who kind of went undercover in a terrorist group, and you're never quite sure whether or not he's been turned. It wasn't a great movie, but it had one of the greatest climaxes ever in like, storming, a sort of remake of the SAS storming of the Iranian embassy in 1980. But yeah, it was best part of the movie, like a 5-minute sequence. But yeah, he would have been great. But que sera.
Yeah, and so it's like every time I read these tabloids, they're like, somebody's odds just increased. And I'm thinking, what are you basing this on? They never comment on any of it, and you don't know what they're going to do. And
it means nothing.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, as far as who's next, like, well, one, it depends on if they're going to. It was rumored that they wanted to have the next era also be an ongoing storyline, interconnected story like Craig, and I think that's a bad idea because it's like, unless you're really going to commit to that and write it in advance, which you can't do because Bond movies have to stay topical, then it's just going to be all slapdash and sloppy like it was in the Craig era. And so I would like them to go back to doing just standalone, unrelated movies so each film can be the best that it can be on its own without having to worry about all these other strings attached.
And if there is an arc to it, then it should be an organic one that happens through the process rather than sort of. And it's kind of the opposite. It's kind of the opposite to what they did with the Star Wars movies, right?
Right.
Well, but that's sort of a sequential tale, and James Bond for 20 movies was references to previous outings, but not necessarily, something happened. James Bond, after On Her Majesty's Secret Service, had always been married to Tracy. That is just a thing.
Yeah, and they referenced it in other eras as well. Like Roger goes to Tracy's grave in For Your Eyes Only.
And the World in License to Kill.
That in World Is Not Enough, it's mentioned that he had either that he was married or they refer to the fact that he once was in a very deep committed relationship. I can't remember the exact words off the top of my head, but everybody jumped to thinking that must be Tracy. Initially, I thought it was referring to Paris Carver because she was, killed in the previous film, and it was implied that they had a relationship. But it could have been referring to Tracy.
And David Hedison. Hedison played Felix Leiter. Not even, 16 years apart.
16 years. Yeah, 73 to 89.
Two different Bonds. It was
Live and Let Die and License to Kill.
Yeah. Because I think everyone else only played the character once, right? Jack Lord only did it once.
Yeah, they wanted Jack Lord to come back, but then Hawaii Five-0 took off and he wanted more money, and they said no. And then that's why they went out of their way to cast somebody you could not have mistaken for Jack Lord's version of Felix.
Yeah, because he's such he looks unlike anyone else on Earth, Jack Lord, with the big
right. And frankly, I would not have believed Felix if Jack Lord had played him Goldfinger. He wouldn't have been as dopey. Like he would have been on top of it from the beginning.
Oh,
it looks like James is okay. Like no way, Jack Lord would have had that all taken care of,
Yeah. Well, and I just want to update everybody in the chat and everyone who is watching this. I just want to acknowledge my own ineptitude. I don't know how to make a poll, but on the plus side,
well, I wasn't, I wasn't being horribly cynical when I was shaking my head.
Yeah, no, you saw me typing furiously. I'm messaging people. I'm asking for help, and it's just like, you know what? I don't know, and I give up. But also, I'm giving up for a second reason, which I'm going to say is on purpose. Who's your favorite? And if in the chat, if you don't want to give your favorite James Bond, give your favorite Felix Leiter.
Okay, so what do you think about this theory that Sean Connery's character in The Rock was Bond?
Ooh, I like this.
And that after From Russia with Love, after he was captured at the end of Dr. No, apparently, right, by the Americans. And he was put into onto the
several maximum security prisons.
Yes, exactly. And he went through the system, right? Went through the system, escaped, and then From Russia with Love happened, and then sometime in the early 1970s, he was recaptured, and that's where. And that's where the big story of The Rock begins. And
then he was put in Alcatraz.
Exactly.
Alcatraz was closed by that time, but I don't know, because first of all, I remember because the story of The Rock, they incarcerated him because he did some type of I can't remember what the reason was that they locked him up. He did something for them, and they wanted to keep it all hush hush. But I kind of like that theory simply because he feels like he's like in that movie, like he's helping them out, but he's just so over it. He's like, I'm like, you guys are like below me. You're like a lower class. I could do this in like my sleep, and I don't really care about what's going on here. I just want to get out and be with my daughter. And but at the same time, he's still engaged to help. I kind of wanted, in a sense, the movie to sort of climax with him and the Ed Harris character, because it seems like those two they would be on the same page about what's going on there. Because of course, spoiler alert for those who haven't seen it, but the big reveal at the end of the movie is that the Ed Harris character's been bluffing the whole time. He's not actually going to do it and unleash this nerve agent, unlike his subordinates who were crazy enough to do it. And I thought, wouldn't it have been nice if Sean had been the one to call his bluff? Because it's like the thing is him going back and forth with Nicolas Cage throughout the movie, and then he just kind of saunters off to the edge. But I still like that idea, because it does feel like the older version of Bond. He is doing all the things that Bond would do, and it's that doesn't give a fuck attitude anymore. In the way he just effortlessly escapes at the end of the movie. So
well, and also juxtaposed specifically with Dr. No, like watching Bond at the end get beaten up by Dr. No's thugs, and then being put in the cell and then trying to get out through the electric grate and then punching it out with his slippers and going through, like, that is how John Mason would have escaped from Alcatraz. Yeah. And so it is interesting, and it holds water for me. I'm fine with it. Especially like the disavowal of James Bond, and this was what would have happened. And I'm kind of envious that Michael Bay got to make a James Bond movie and Steven Spielberg never did. It's just that Michael Bay didn't know.
And more than that, what they did is the British government had Simon Templar in prison, and they just said, okay, we'll let you out, but you've got to pretend to be James Bond now.
Well, and as long as we're talking about fan theories, how do you feel about James Bond being a code name?
I think that was no, because I mean that was invented by people who were trying to find a way to make all of the series to be have a shared continuity, which just doesn't work. And they jumped onto that bandwagon and because in Die Another Day they had the cameo from all of the other gadgets, and it's like, dude, that's just them having fun, tipping the hat. It doesn't mean anything.
Yeah.
It's just, and being a code name means you have to disavow all of the Craig era. You have to disavow, unless he married Tracy with the code name Tracy Bond instead of his real name, if that's what they're saying.
Well, I mean, the obvious answer is that he's had plastic surgery. That would kind of make sense why he looks different. Or guess what? Or you could just use your imagination. And
I like that one. I like that one
better, because plastic. Okay, even if you did get plastic surgery, you're gonna age, and you're not gonna be able to move and fight that.
It just looks exactly the same.
Every time you bring up facial reconstruction, all I can think of is Blofeld in Diamonds Are Forever, and I just won't have it.
Oh no, it'll be like the Die Another Day version.
Oh, but it's much worse. In the books, Blofeld goes through some crazy changes in the books. He starts off basically like Ulrich Goldfinger, huge. He has a shaved head, very bloated, and then he grows long silver hair, and he's quite muscular. With a big floppy moustache, if I'm not mistaken.
Well, that's why people were saying it would have been so much better if they had Dave Bautista play Blofeld instead of Christoph Waltz, because they could have done the novel accurate version.
I would have liked that. That on hindsight.
Yeah.
I really liked Spectre.
Spectre's a fun movie. It's not.
It's
the best
better. It's better than Die Another Day.
Oh, of course, that's easy to do.
It's better than Octopussy.
Yeah. I mean, I still have nostalgia for Octopussy. I grew up watching that one as well, and I like the cast and that kind of thing. But
well, Maud Adams is awesome.
It is.
Yeah,
it is
Allison
better
Beauty.
than that film that Neil Connery was in.
Oh, right. Neil, is that Sean Connery's son? That's the one. The
brother. It's his brother.
Oh no, but
Neil,
there's one that his son was in as well. But you were saying
no. It was he did a film. I think it was. Oh right. So there were two biopics about about Fleming. One starred Charles Dance, and the other one starred Jason Connery. They were both made for TV, and I think one was a miniseries, and the other one was a film. I think, and
I think the
yeah,
Jason Connery one was a film.
and famously, the woman from Autumn Watch got a knocks out in that one, so that's.
Well, and that's something that you don't get with James Bond movies, except for
True.
the opening titles, of course, where you get to see silhouettes of nipples.
Yeah.
So, as far as where they go next with it, in terms of they're talking about who they're going to get or whatever, I think that I would like them to do a Connery type throwback, a character who's not as edgy as Craig, but somebody who clearly has fun being James Bond. Like, I can't picture Craig's character like having fun with Goldfinger on the golf course. He's not going to do that. Sure, he screws people over and makes funny jokes, like in Casino Royale when the guy mistakes him for one of the valet driver, and he decides to just wreck his car, and it's funny, but he doesn't stick around to watch because he doesn't really care about it. He's just like, okay, I'm just going to play this prank, move on, just to get to where I need to go next. Whereas Connery would have, if that was Connery, he would have taken the guy for a ride and would have had fun with it.
Oh yeah.
That's the kind of Bond I want to see next. Kind of like, the Connery version of Curly, like in Thunderball when he walks up to the table and he immediately blows his cover when he's talking to Largo by doing the whole Spectre puns thing and like, yeah, it's like somebody,
Emilio Largo.
I think that the best sort of direction that they could possibly go, I don't think that they can soften it Connery. Like, I just think that the pendulum should start swinging back the other way and go to Pierce Brosnan.
He's good.
And not specifically, but that sort of approach to it. And I think it should have a beginning, a middle, and the end. And it's one movie. And, there used to be a joy in seeing a new James Bond. And it was like, well, the first one was really good. I can't wait to see what they do next. And then you find out if you're a James Bond fan, like five times.
Well, this is the thing. I really wanted to see a 007 versus the Saint film. Where Bond had to. So basically, the idea that I had was that the Saint got framed for an act of terrorism, and Bond has to track him down and kill him, right? And it basically ends up. Obviously, they end up working together, and my idea, and this is an idea for a comic, but of course they can't do it because they can't use the likenesses of the actors in James Bond comics, right?
That's true, yes.
So the idea would be that it would end with the death of Connery's Bond, and of course what they do is they put him in Simon Templar's grave, and Simon Templar carries on as Bond. But obviously, with The Rock being canon, obviously that can't happen. So,
well, and also it sort of sounds a little bit like you're doing Doctor Who and Star Trek in some sort of weird mashup, which I am down for in a comic book. I'm sure they have done Star Trek and Doctor Who together, but I would take a Bond.
Regé-Jean Page apparently has signed on for signed a contract with Paramount to do
for the Saint.
To do a Saint, at least one Saint film. But then again, isn't he also on the list to play Bond as well? So it's like,
well, on the tabloid list of, we don't know who's actually on Barbara Michaels' list.
Idris Elba.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's just another piece of news I forgot to mention is that for also dropping today on Amazon Prime, for those of you who have it, which I don't, is the new documentary, The Sound of 007. That's been getting some good reviews, I think. I haven't actually read them, but I've been hearing good things about it.
Oh, I have Amazon Prime. I got that in one day.
Nice. That is cool.
Yeah, it is cool. I didn't just see a picture of it and then immediately have to buy it or anything.
Okay, we accept that. We believe you 100%. Well, and speaking of things that you bought on an impulse, you were posting. We're all part of a conversation that is held without prying eyes. But I was just curious. Um, you
So
have
wrong.
well, whatever, but you have the role playing, the tabletop.
Yes.
And that's like, what are the rules? If you're how many players? Like, what in terms of? I want to discuss all of the multimedia. I am so
So
excited to be able to share the 60th anniversary of James Bond with two of my favorite
yeah.
Bond fans.
Well, it's about as multimedia as you can get because it's taking a role playing game series that was in book form in the 1980s,
Yeah,
and it's playing it through a PC on a piece of software called Tabletop Simulator, and it's about as complicated as it gets, really. But it's great because you have all the source books. You have all the maps. You can kind of arrange them on this sort of virtual table, and you can sort of play and there's a really I think it's called Assault,
yes,
and it was a board game made during the run of this role playing game. It was made by the same company, and it kind of you can kind of mix the two. I'm not sure it was designed to do that, but you can. Yeah, so I've been trying to sort of wean this idea into conversations, but I don't know. Maybe.
well,
Maybe sometime.
congratulations. It seems to have worked. What are the missions that you go on during this James Bond
Well,
tabletop
there's
game?
let me see. So you've got I think it's the first 6 films plus
Nice.
because it came out.
I would love to play From Russia with Love. That would be awesome.
Russia with Love, and don't forget, of course, Goldfinger 2.
Sorry, what that? What is Goldfinger 2?
There is a Goldfinger 2.
Explain. Don't be disappointed. I'm dumb.
It takes the title of Goldfinger
And
adds a 2 on the end.
Perfect.
Speaking of tabletop, I recently saw one that they put out, a board game tabletop like that called Spectre, stylized after the new Craig Spectre, but I think it involves all the characters and stuff from the 60s as well.
Cool.
I haven't actually played it yet. I've seen it on shelf.
Isn't that I think that's the same company that made the Alien game.
Oh, nice.
That I'm not pointing at the moment. The Alien game.
I think they did. They made The Thing as well.
Yeah, and but they didn't do They Live.
That
was done by another company. But that's cool. Actually, I still haven't played that yet. It's got the sunglasses and everything. But I have no idea how it works. So, but it's unnecessarily complicated, probably. But I'm up for it if it's going to happen.
Just want to. Oh well, and I do want it to happen. Like, I'd like to play, and especially if you have the representation, so we can do it digitally. That'd be awesome. It'd be great. I would like to hear more about this Goldfinger 2 you speak of. Wait, hang on. Before you go on, I just want to say hi to Tiger Stripes for being here. Thanks, Tiger Stripes. Ahoy. And also, this is going to feed into yet another thing that I think is somewhat appropriate. Todd Michael asks, did they ever imply Bond is a furry, asking for a friend?
Yeah, Badger.
Well, no, but have you ever seen the Uma Thurman, Rafe Fiennes Avengers?
No, that's...
And Sean Connery is dressed as, if you're a furry...
Teddy bear.
If you're a furry, that's the Connery for you.
He's definitely a badger.
A badger. A badger. All right.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, as long as we got that.
He is bald as... Oh, no, that's something else. But he is bald as a badger, so... or at least that incarnation is.
And once again, a hello to Jill and Tiger Stripes. Anyway, you were saying, I apologize. I interrupted because people were here.
Can't remember what I was going to say. Yes, so it is Goldfinger. Even though, of course, Goldfinger famously is dead. So,
Is it like the son of Goldfinger?
Um,
Is it like Simon Gruber?
Or is it like that
oh,
alternate?
it's the Spectre game is made by Modifius, who also make the Conan board game, which is terrible.
The rise of into late night television shows. The Conan.
Yeah, it is the Conan, not the Conan the Barbarian board game.
The Conan O'Brien tabletop game. I want to play that one too.
I do too. It's him up against. It's just him fist fighting with Jay Leno for 6 hours.
It's like Rock'em Sock'em Robots, but it's late night hosts.
So given the day is October 5th, the 60th anniversary, Tony, what are your thoughts on the original Dr. No?
It's one of those things because obviously they hadn't really set up the format quite yet, and it starts off with it obviously it doesn't have a big bombastic Shirley Bassey tune at the start. It does it's just dun 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 dun. It's just the Monty Norman thing, right?
Well, and also minutes. Kingston Calypso.
That's exactly right. Yeah, but that's not. Yes, that goes through the titles. Yes,
I'm appreciating, but I understand where you're coming from.
Yes, but but yeah. So I mean, even from Russia with Love, the song doesn't appear to the end of the movie, right? I mean, during the opening credits, it's the instrumental version.
Same with All the Time in the World for Majesty's Secret. Actually, the music they used in the main titles of Majesty's Secret Service isn't even sourced from All the Time in the World. It's its own original thing, and then they play that song halfway through the movie.
Also, if you notice, the instrumentation for All the Time in the World is almost identical to the instrumentation in You Only Live Twice. It sounds.
It's slowed down of that.
Yeah.
Of the On Her Majesty's Secret Service. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like John Barry was like, yeah, you know what? Can we just slow it down? I just can't.
What? Yeah.
Which is why they recycled it again in No Time to Die, because they were drawing heavily on the You Only Live Twice novel.
Yeah. And that's here's the crazy thing. So the Blofeld trilogy, because Spectre only really appears in 3 books, right?
Right.
The first one is Thunderball. The second one is On Her Majesty's Secret Service. The third one is You Only Live Twice. Now, Blofeld, spoiler alert, stick your fingers in your ears, do whatever you need to do. Blofeld dies at the end of You Only Live Twice. And what? Bond is thought to have died and kind of comes back in The Man with the Golden Gun and has
he had amnesia at the end.
At
the end of You Only Live Twice, and
so
there was a suggestion that Fleming wanted to stop writing the series, kind of like Arthur Conan Doyle with Sherlock Holmes, and that the publisher got in his ear and said, "Fleming, no, you can't do that," because after the novel You Only Live Twice meets its natural end with Blofeld being strangled in the garden, it just kind of goes on for another couple chapters or whatever. It's just talking about his life with this woman, and it just sort of ends, and it's like, what? And it's because he probably wanted to end it the way she wanted it to end, was him to propose marriage and for her to say, "Oh, by the way, I'm pregnant," and then
because he can't do that job forever. He can't do that job. It's like this thing, which is slightly annoying. You know, when people keep saying, "Oh, you know, when are we going to see Savage Hulk again? You know, when's he going to rip the shit out of things again?" And it's like, well, he's done that. Mm-hmm. That's all in the past, right? And it's like, but they want to apply 65 years or 60 years of comics history onto live action, and it doesn't work because human beings get old and die.
Yeah, how old is Peter Parker now?
Right.
The thing is,
he's 60.
Unlike DC, which their chronology is all over the place. The Marvel Universe is kind of like the Olympics, right? 1 year for them is 4 years for us. So Peter Parker at this point has been Spider-Man for 15 years, and he is in his 30s now in the comics. And if you use that kind of logic, it kind of works.
Yes.
Kind of.
Now, in doing what limited research I do for this show, I obviously sat on the couch, had perfectly legal products, and watched James Bond movies, and I tried to construct some form of, if I wanted to encapsulate. The problem with my theory, and I think it's a good theory, is that you have to watch 2 Daniel Craig movies at the beginning and 2 Daniel Craig movies at the end. Because you have to wrap up the Vesper, and then you got to do the Madeline Swan. Those are the bookends of what you have now, in my opinion. And then I sort of went Russia with Love. You got to do on Her Majesty's Secret Service. I did. What was it? Spy Who Loved Me, Living Daylights, and Goldeneye. And then you end with Spectre and No Time to Die.
I know people that really hate the Living Daylights. Really?
Yeah, no,
hate
people
the
don't.
Living Daylights, and I don't really understand it.
That's not my problem.
Just had, I don't know if you saw it, Scott, but I tagged you in it. They just had an event when they were talking about the sound of 007, and they had Art Malik and Marion Diabo there to commemorate the 35th anniversary of the Living Daylights.
Nice.
They had like an interview thing go on. I haven't found the clip to see if it's made its way online yet, but I saw they posted the pictures. That was nice. But yeah, so it's kind of like you mentioned, the ones that are absolute must. I would say the Craig era is kind of like a Venn diagram. Yeah. The first 3 are the prequels about how he became James Bond, which is why I know Sam Mendes said that, the reason I didn't put the logo in the front of it was because the opening shot is like that. Anyway, it's like, no, the reason you didn't do it is because you're digging into you're making this part 3 of the origin story, so you put the gun barrel at the end of the movie, which is why the movie ends with him, much like most Bond movies begin. He goes in to talk with Moneypenny, and then he goes to get his mission from M at the end. So that regardless of what socio-political status of the world is in 50 years, it's still making Bond movies. And somebody asks, well, how did he get his start? I point him to the first 3 Craig films. Likewise, Skyfall also falls into how did Bond end, the conclusion being the last 3 Craig films, because Spectre clearly begins not long after Skyfall because he's been given all of his personal effects from the wreck of that. And then obviously No Time to Die picks up in Italy shortly after the end of Spectre. So that's a trilogy in and of itself. And like you said, people are human. He's not going to live forever, but he's also not a family man. He's not going to settle down and have a normal family life. Yeah. You have that. So it's like 2 different trilogies, Skyfall in the middle overlapping, that you can watch depending on which you want to set up for. The must-watches for me would be Dr. No, From Russia with Love, the Fab Four, Goldfinger, Thunderbolt. Those 4 you kind of have to watch the Fab Four.
Yeah,
I'm fine.
I would pick Live and Let Die and Moonraker for
Thunderball though.
That's true. Thunderball. I guess we could drop that one.
Hey, come on! Tiger Stripes in the chat is being like Thunderball is an absolute must.
The Venus Rising from the Sea. Yeah, Lucifer Rising from the Sea. That's true.
Claudine Auger.
From the Moore era, I would have to pick Live and Let Die and Moonraker as far as classic Bond adventures go.
Oh, we're gonna get into Moonraker.
And then I would have to pick Goldeneye, and then of course some of the Craig films. And then everything else kind of falls where it may. I didn't watch any of them to prepare for this because I just participated in IMAX's 60th anniversary series where they picked 1 movie from each actor to play each week, and I saw all those.
And which were they?
Goldfinger, which I actually didn't see. I saw that in theaters at a regular theater 10 years ago, and I missed it in IMAX. And after that, I watched On Her Majesty's Secret Service in IMAX.
Nice.
The Spy Who Loved Me, IMAX. The Living Daylights, IMAX. Goldeneye, IMAX, and Casino Royale in IMAX. Mm-hmm. And those were all great. And I also saw Spectre in IMAX when it came out, and No Time to Die in IMAX when it came out.
I didn't see I only got, those were troubled times. You couldn't get inside at a theater. Yeah. So I saw that at a drive-in. So I got to smoke and drink martinis. Someone else drove.
I just had my first vodka martini, actually, not but a couple weeks ago.
And?
It was awful, but it was still something.
But now, was it shaken or stirred? Because most aficionados would say it kind of destroys because the ice crystallizes and stuff. If you shake it, you've got to stir it.
Yeah, it was shaken, and no, Todd Michael, I lied. I forgot it wasn't not a dirty martini, but it was awful. But I drank it anyway. I figured I figured I had to because I guess it's a rule if you're going to be on this channel, you have to do the Bond show. You have to have at least one. So that was that. But as far as the review for Dr. No, I still love it and consider it the best Connery movie and one of the best, my third favorite Bond film overall, because you actually see him being a secret agent in it. It's not just action scene, love scene, action scene, rinse, dry, repeat, villain monologue, or whatever. You actually see him being like a detective in the first half of the movie. He's visiting crime scenes. He's interviewing suspects. He's withholding information from even some of his allies. He's actually, working the case, as it were. And that makes it really engaging. Mm-hmm. Even though the character, admittedly, you don't get into like his personal life or anything like that. It's a very accessible character, but I didn't mind that because I'm enjoying the mystery of it. Like Dr. No himself, sure, he doesn't have that much screen time. Oh, what's this?
Qu'est-ce que c'est?
Oh, Goldfinger 2. The man with the Midas touch. Yes.
There better be golf.
But I didn't mind the fact that he's not in it as much because he has such screen presence throughout the film. It begins the three blind mice hit that file and the big dramatic music beat when it's there. The fact that the guy who picks up Bond in the car would rather commit suicide than tell him what's going on. The photographer lady would rather have her arm broken. The Miss Chow, whatever her name is, from the embassy snooping in on his conversations. And Felix like, oh yeah, Crab Key, we don't know much except for the guy's name. And Honey Ryder saying, or Coral saying, everybody goes missing there who goes there. And then, Honey saying, so you're constantly thinking about this character throughout the movie, but you're still kind of engaged in the mystery and it's working the case. And I don't find that a lot of Bond films are as engaging in the same way because future movies, as they said in the formula, sort of explicitly tell you what's going to happen, like with Goldfinger telling all the mobsters exactly what he's going to do right before he kills them all anyway. And so, whereas Dr. No, you don't get that equivalent scene from him to see what he's doing. You kind of follow the case through Bond's eyes, which I find is a lot more fun because you're kind of going on the journey with him. You're not being told. There's only a few select Bond films where they tell you what's going on right up front, like Tomorrow Never Dies, where they tell you who the villain is and what he's doing right up front. Okay, another one from Russia with Love. They tell you Kronstein's evil plan right up front, and then you're on for the races. But I like that Dr. No doesn't do that. It has the tropical setting, which is probably why they went to Tony's point. Why not do the accurate version of Moonraker? Because that could easily have been done. They probably wanted to pick a location that was more exotic to kind of, reel people in for the first movie. Even though Dr. No is also one of the more novel, accurate adaptations that they've done. And it's still thoroughly entertaining. And, of course, Joseph Wiseman sets the table for what you expect from a Bond film.
Yeah.
And worthy enough that they were clearly emulating Dr. No a lot in No Time to Die last year in more ways than one.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, and especially in the production design of the the base is very reminiscent, and again, it becomes a bookend to the beginning of the series. It's as opposed to being like with Die Another Day, which was very tongue in cheek for the 20th James Bond film. The 25th, it was like poetry. It rhymed. It was there visually, and it made you think of other things, but it didn't necessarily rip them off whole cloth.
Well, it's sort of like what they did with the Craig era as a whole. It's like Casino Royale is the origin story. Dr. No is people's introduction, so there's kind of a crossover there. Both the plots of Quantum of Solace and From Russia with Love were what they were as a direct result of the events of the previous film. They're direct sequels to each other.
And that's right. When you think about... Sorry, go ahead.
Right, because like Kronstein said, the reason he was so confident his plan was going to succeed is that, every Spectre agent wants to avenge Dr. No, so that's going to work. And the Quantum, of course, continuing with Mr. White from the end of the first one. And then both third films in the series, Goldfinger and Skyfall, took a break from the overarching story to have wildly popular films, wildly popular title songs. It's like history repeating itself in a weird way. And then the fourth films in both franchises, Spectre and Thunderball, returned to the overarching story, trying to tie everything up again, bringing back Blofeld and homaging what came out before. And then the fifth movie, rather than homaging You Only Live Twice, which, as we know, was not a good adaptation of the book, they instead decided with No Time to Die to heavily adapt the Only Live Twice novel. It's probably the best adaptation of that novel we're ever going to get. So in a way, it's kind of like it's homaging the Craig era. It's kind of homaging the Connery era. Like you said, it rhymes, and it rhymes in the best.
Yeah.
Like it's a true bookend to the series. But for Dr. No, I think they picked also the right book to kick off with, and this is why I still love it today. And it's still my third favorite of all 25.
Now the thing is, do you think Daniel Craig's going to come back in about 5 years and do his Diamonds Are Forever?
No, I think he's got a successful enough of career outside of Bond that he's not going to do that again.
He's got Cowboys and Aliens 2 to think about. In the chat, well, I just want to jump in and say hello again to Tiger Stripes, saying I thought the Craig Casino Royale was a brilliant reboot. Then the next film was such a sad return to form that it couldn't help but disappoint. There are so many things going on in Quantum of Solace that
I feel that it was a return to the old form. It seemed like it was very different from all the rest of the movies because
it kind of felt like a Bourne ripoff.
Exactly, that's what it was. It didn't feel like it was trying to emulate the Bond formula. It was very much its own thing. But yeah, and another reason I don't think Craig would come back is because, as I understand it, it was Cubby and Harry desperate to bring in Connery again because the fans at the time didn't like Majesties very much, and it's like, oh, we need to do something. We got to get Connery. It's the only way to fix it.
Well, don't forget, Lazenby sort of, pooped the Aston Martin on that one in terms of predicting counterculture was going to be the prevalent way of the wind, and he decided that he wasn't going to be a square because he thought James Bond was a square.
Well, that's also, I mean, I know that privately a lot of producers and stuff on a series, if they made a movie that they know was bad, or they know that most people thought was bad, they're not going to acknowledge it because they recognize that there's other people out there who like it, and they don't want to throw them under the bus. Whereas during the marketing for Diamonds Are Forever, that's the only time where I can remember that they were overtly like mocking their previous effort when they're like, oh, don't worry, we're back now. Everything's back to normal. Everything's fine. Like, oh, ignore the detour with Lazenby type thing. And I thought that was so weird and kind of disrespectful because it's like, what? And so I don't think they find themselves in that boat as divisive as No Time to Die was, that they should have an easier time of it going forward.
So far as to recasting Blofeld with an actor that was also in the previous Connery film, but as an ally. So it's like when Bond sees Blofeld and he's got the face of a man who died trying to protect him. Hang on. No, I can't remember now. No,
it was because he played. Yeah. He was what's his name? And You Only Live Twice, and he gets shot in the back right as he's about to give the crucial information, and then he comes back in
Henderson
Forever.
Maybe I'm overthinking this.
Well, that's the point, man. We're having fun.
The same question was raised in Majesties because they made it explicitly clear that Majesties was part of the same continuity as the Connery movies. Yeah, unless Blofeld was pretending not to recognize him at first, if he wasn't pretending and he genuinely didn't recognize that it was Bond, then it's like, what? It's like, how do you not recognize each other? Oh, Tiger Stripes, straight up vodka martini is like trying to drink gasoline. Yeah, I took very small sips of that over the course of like an hour until I probably left a third of it full because it was a bit much.
Vermouth. Whoever invented the vermouth. Ugh.
That's why it's a dry vodka martini, barely a capful. Well, and also they introduce the exact recipe when you want to talk about Casino Royale with the Vesper. Fireball! You are Felix Leiter. No, you're worse than Felix Leiter. You're Michael Madsen in Die Another Day.
I love Fireball. Oh, I forgot that Michael Madsen was in this franchise. That's right.
I know.
Bring back Michael Madsen.
Let's do that. Simone in the chat says, my first exposure to Mr. Bond as a kid was the marathons on City TV. The good old days. City TV is a local channel, Channel 57, Cable 7 in Toronto. And obviously my Canadian is showing.
But she brings up a good topic. What were our first forays into Bond?
Tony, please.
Well, I mean, every Easter or Christmas, every bank holiday, they would have a Bond film on, or usually on a Sunday afternoon or a bank holiday, and it would be like nearly 3 hours because they would cut it in half for the news, and then obviously with the adverts and everything. So it would be this sort of 3 hour chunk that you would devote. And a lot of the time it was on during dinner, so that was quite nice watching it while eating dinner. So, yeah.
This is a complete tangent, and also I'm gonna just highlight that Edge of Time. Hey, says, do you associate Bond with Christmas because of the marathons? He still does, or they still do, and it's something that reminds me of an interview between Tom Hanks and Oprah Winfrey. And Tom Hanks was being interviewed back when Oprah Winfrey was on like broadcast television. And Oprah asks, what is your definition of happiness? And he says, Sunday night, ABC movie of the week, a James Bond movie, and a bowl full of mashed potatoes. That was Tom Hanks's definition of when were you happiest, and it always stuck with me, and so I will forgive him of many things, including the Polar Express.
How about you, Scott? When did you first discover Bond?
It is, well, and I'm sort of with Simone with this, is that the City TV marathons in Toronto with watching Goldfinger, or living a little bit farther north than Toronto, it was watching For Your Eyes Only, because I remember Roger Moore kicking Locke off of the cliff in the car with the pin of the dove, and I remember that and being like, this is some hardcore movie. Like, that was the first time that I saw somebody kill a man on television in a movie.
And also Blofeld, them going, you know what, we can't get the rights to this character. Kevin McCrory still has them, so let's not name him as Blofeld, but let's make it as obvious as possible, and then drop him down a chimney.
Yes. Whoa.
Yeah, that was a bit petty.
But again, that is a pre-title sequence that includes some, if you would like to sort of elevate For Your Eyes Only, that's when Roger Moore goes to Tracy's grave. Yep, and that's right. That is the reference, and that's the thing, is that in terms of the references that go backwards, On Her Majesty's Secret Service references the previous 4 films, in terms of the adventures that Sean Connery had, establishing that George Lazenby was still that James Bond, and then Roger Moore acknowledging the previous, Lazenby. So those things were just sort of neat, same guy. It never bothered me. I didn't need A to B to C to D.
Yeah, I remember my first encounter with Bond is I was in Arizona. We were visiting relatives, and went out to run some errands with my grandfather. And we went to the video stores. We were going to be there for a while. I think we were visiting for a week and a half or something like that. And so we go to the video store, and I see GoldenEye must have just come to video because they had the huge poster and the little standee for all of it. Yeah. And I'm like, oh, we got to rent this because it just was the coolest poster ever. And he's like, no, you want to see these? I'm like, see what? So he went over and it had its own section. And I've been to video stores before, but I guess it hadn't really occurred to me that one particular franchise would have its own section in the video store, which seems like the coolest thing ever. And then I'm looking at all these titles, and he's like, oh, we're going to pick these. So then we rented the Fab Four, and then we rented GoldenEye because I insisted. And that night we watched GoldenEye, and I loved it. It didn't really go, even the political stuff that probably went over my head didn't go over my head that much because it was a very accessible story. And even the only thing that gets overtly political is probably when they're talking about the history of the Cossacks, but they say it simply enough that I can still follow the story. And I loved that. But then when we went in to start watching the Fab Four, even though tonally and pacing wise it's very different, it didn't bother me in the slightest. I was still thoroughly engaged with it because I was already hooked on the character and the formula, even though Dr. No didn't have, again, all the hallmarks of the formula yet. And that was really cool. And even though once I got back home in Northern California, for a while I wasn't seeing certain movies I would prefer when we go back down to Arizona to visit, rent them, and watch them with him, which I did for a while, until I eventually got all the when they first put out those 3 box set DVDs in '99 or so, and then I went out the day after Christmas to get a DVD player so I could actually watch them. But I remember it's kind of neat because I remember there was a guy from James Bond Radio who took a trip. Yes, that's it. Who took a trip to the United States, and he said he'd meet American fans. Somebody was wearing some type of Bond paraphernalia, and he walked up to him and he says, "Can I ask you a question?" He's like, "Why? What is it about this character? Like, why do you like it? You're American." And he's like, "Well, I could care less about the nationality. It's the formula. It's the character. It's just everything's firing in all cylinders. It doesn't really like the patriotism part doesn't really play a role in it, even if you're not British, but you don't care because you're taken with it." Again, because I have a bunch of foreign films on here. Many of them are overtly political for the countries that they come from, but it doesn't matter. They can't relate to it. They're great movies, like Manila and the Claws of Light, for instance. Wonderful Filipino film. I can't relate to that. I've been there, but it's still a wonderful movie. And so, I think that's something the franchise also has hold of. It has a universal appeal because there's very few places you can go in the world and mention James Bond 007 and get somebody going like, huh? Like everybody knows what it is, which is why when Quantum of Solace came about, and most of those criticisms aside, I was kind of surprised that people were criticizing the villain's scheme and says, "Oh, this doesn't matter. It doesn't care." It's like, well, if you're down from South America, you might care, And he's got no shortage of Bond fans down there too, So
but with Quantum of Solace suffered from a lot of issues production-wise. Sorry, my mistake. I didn't mean to know.
But I meant like with that aspect particular is that I think as far as what the appeal of the franchise has as a whole and what it had to me, even though I wasn't British, I wasn't into the espionage or any that kind of stuff, was just the formula and the whole universe. It's just it captures something,
Well, and Tiger Stripe says a spy's national allegiance always seems in motion to me anyway, which is interesting, and especially like having just recently watched Dr. No, he's going to Jamaica to find out about the toppling of rockets that are being fired from Cape Canaveral. He is protecting global interests. In terms of it is James Bond, while maybe sort of nationally British, obviously, he jumped out of an aircraft with the Queen of England at the Olympics, so he's obviously somewhat British. But he's doing things on behalf of the world. He's saving the world. Part of the fun of this is I'm looking at all the stereotypes and like Man from U.N.C.L.E. and things like that. Like all of the things that sort of were influenced. Our Man Flint, obviously. All of these things. And I watched
recently.
And if I just may finish my Sorry. If I may just finish my point, and I do want to talk about that, man. But I'm just saying, like, part of this is I've been watching like the opening to Austin Powers Gold Member, and I obviously my brain, because I'm me, stumbled across the trailer to Spice World, and it's like when the world is in danger, they call one man, and it's Roger Moore. But when he's busy, he calls 5 girls, and then it's Spice World. And it's like, okay, I'm fine with that. But when the world is in danger, you call one man, and it's James Bond. And that is even acknowledged in, a Spice Girls movie.
Because you kind of mentioned that, and that, Dr. No, they're saving American rockets are getting toppled, NASA. In Goldfinger, it's Fort Knox, the American gold depository. And then in Thunderball, Miami's going to get blown up at, American city, but it still has that global...
For sure.
Global appeal.
I don't know what's going on here. Someone's giving me a different wig.
That's cool, Playmobil. I love it.
Oh,
so you're
what did that come with, or did you get that individually? That came with
it was the DB5.
Is it together?
Yeah, it was with the DB. You get Bond, you get Odd Job, you get Goldfinger, and you get one of the henchmen, one of the Tong henchmen.
Oh, cool! I wonder if it was Burt Kwok.
It may well have been. Yeah.
Who knows? I do also enjoy that Burt Kwok was an actor who straddled both. I've used straddled twice today. Straddled both the Pink Panther and James Bond. Actually, he performed with two.
He was in Goldfinger. He was the chief scientist that Goldfinger's working with, who he kills.
Mm-hmm.
He was He was also in the 67 Casino Royale.
I thought he was in another.
That's one of the guys at the auction.
Okay.
And ooh, that's nice there. Ooh, that's a nice one. Oh, you got the Playmobil one. Nice. Oh,
Well, now it's broken and worth nothing.
that is.
Hey,
Oh, it's go.
is that a Doctor Who?
That's Goldfinger.
Oh, it is Goldfinger. Sorry, no, I didn't recognize him. He looked too trim.
Yeah, I was gonna say he looks a bit lightweight.
There he is.
Of course.
And I can't find Burt Kwok. He's around here somewhere.
Well, he's probably escaped. That's awesome.
It's great. Inside is amazing. Like,
It is, isn't it? That is cool.
I saw one DB5 and it was fully, and it was like $2,000, but it was a recreation with all of the interior panels that worked, the rotating number plates, everything, the blast shield at the back, and
so, that all happens on here as well. You get the things come out, the
blades,
wheel,
yeah.
Wheel, they turn around. These, hang on, where's it going?
Oh, you know what? This is perfect. Thank you so much for showing us your wonderful toys. How can we have a 60th anniversary conversation about James Bond without bringing up Desmond Llewellyn?
Yes,
Of course.
Like, come on, the man, the second Boothroyd.
yes, that's right. Yeah,
That's true.
But absolutely an ambassador. If there is an ambassador to James Bond before his passing, if you didn't like Q, you weren't a James Bond fan.
Yeah.
Really?
I like that Bond and Q always had this cantankerous uncle and mischievous nephew type relationship, like Sherman and Mr. Peabody, or
pay attention, Bond.
Pinky in the Brain. It's just it's classic.
Pay attention, Bond.
Well, and I always sort of I boil it down to Warner Brothers cartoons, and yeah, like Q is a Porky Pig, and James Bond is a Bugs Bunny.
No, yeah, I could say that, yeah. Or maybe Q is Daffy Duck.
I don't know.
Yeah, I would say
Chuck Jones era Daffy Duck.
in the Looney Tunes analogy, I would say Q would be Marvin Martian, because he's always he's very brainiac. He's always got these things he's trying to do, but he's always oblivious.
What
to
have you done with my Ludium Pew-36 explosive space modulator?
Where's the kaboom? There was supposed to be an earth-shattering kaboom.
Anyway.
All right, but yeah, it's like Q. I thought it was funny that he would say that sometimes people would see him like trying to open a hotel door with a key card and he can't figure it out. They're like, "We thought you'd be able to figure it out." He's like, "I don't know how to do this shit." It's just they call me, I show up and do the bit, off I go. But
it is so entertaining if you have the opportunity to check out. It's on YouTube. The television ad or the promotional material for the video game for Tomorrow Never Dies, and it's Desmond Llewellyn trying to teach people how to use a PlayStation. It's just great.
It's almost as good. It's almost as good. There's a game that came out about 3 or 4 years ago called The Raid, Second World War II.
Yeah.
And John Cleese was basically doing that same thing, but for that, it was really good.
Well, and also... No, but if we're going to mention, that's absolutely perfect, because if we're going to mention Desmond Llewellyn, the transition over to R or Q and the reverence that was given by Pierce Brosnan, there are a lot of things I don't like about Die Another Day. Yeah. But when finally Pierce Brosnan switches over to call him Quartermaster and Q, it was a perfect passing of the torch, in my opinion. I enjoyed that.
Because the last scene with Q was in the previous movie, right? The World Is Not Enough, where his send off was really beautiful. It was a fantastic.
Because he was going to retire the role anyway, and so like he says, Bond, I've always tried to teach you. Pay attention. I've always tried to teach you two things: First, never let him see you bleed. And he's like, and the second, always have an escape plan. And he just goes right down into the floor.
Yeah.
Which is just so tragic but poignant and ominous after, what happened barely a month after that film came out.
Yeah.
But yeah, he was a brilliant ambassador for the franchise while he was alive.
Amazing.
And he really liked doing it too. I mean, a lot of people get in roles like that, and it's like, oh, we're under contract, we have to keep coming back. But no, he loved it.
Yeah.
Like enough so that he was really upset after the mismatch that resulted in him not being able to appear in Live and Let Die.
Well, it's like in License to Kill when he goes out to America and he's like, well, it's like a holiday. I get to leave. I get to leave the office. I get to leave my bunker for a week.
Yeah, I'm gonna potentially become a traitor to the country by helping out this rogue agent, and I'm probably gonna go to prison and all that. But I don't care. I'm gonna help him. It's Bond.
Well, thank you. I appreciate the dovetailing into what I would like to call me being castigated on the internet yet again for my favorite James Bond movie. The best James Bond movie of all time is License to Kill, and my favorite James Bond is Timothy Dalton. Please direct all of your angry tweets at not me.
No,
Dalton was very good in the role.
I don't have a problem with that at all. It was, and the thing is, I think people get up in arms because it's like, well, it didn't feel like a Bond movie. It's like, well, the whole point is he's the same character, just in a different situation, right?
Have you seen the deleted scene where he actually shows, like when he gets out of the crest wave and he's got a harpoon and he says for Sharky and he shoots a guy in the chest with the harpoon? There is just a brief cut of him laughing maniacally as if he took so much glee in murdering a man that it's just like, I think that's what most people see when they're watching it without that. It's like, why is he's supposed to be the good guy. Why is he going rogue? And then we get to the Daniel Craig era where every movie is him going rogue. Yeah. And it's like, this is what that's what James Bond does. He doesn't care.
I think to your point, that's why they added the Stinger missile subplot to License to Kill, so that it's also not just about bloody revenge. It's about, he's trying to stop something that is objectively evil and terrible that's going to happen.
Well, and, I'm glad we're discussing License to Kill because, again, my favorite Bond girl of all time is Pam Bouvier, Carrie Lowell.
Yeah. I'm a very big Carrie Lowell fan, yeah. Lowell. Yeah.
But she's fantastic in it, and...
I could have done without the catty love triangle stuff, but...
Well, who likes Lupe?
That was weird. It's like you've met him for like 2 seconds, where she at least has more. Pam Bouvier at least has more of a reason to like him, as Lupe doesn't. And it also had one of my favorite henchmen, even though they didn't use him much, is Benicio del Toro as Dario.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah,
first film role.
He had one of the greatest deaths as well. It's been ground up, and it was like you thought, you don't want to do that.
And of course, bless your heart.
Wayne Newton, everybody. Well, and also, don't forget the deleted scene of Sammy Davis Jr. in Diamonds Are Forever. Come on, we got a lot of Vegas entertainers in this franchise.
Yeah, that was apparently, I think he used the money. Now, so he was paid for that cameo, I believe, right?
Yeah.
So he was paid for the cameo, and he used the money he got from that cameo, which was never used, to buy the Candyman.
The Candyman? Oh.
The song.
Yes. Sorry, your camera just dropped out. Tony.
What the hell happened?
I don't know. You probably dropped a DB5 on it.
That was that's right. He did buy that. Yeah,
he bought the rights to the Candyman. The Candyman can. Oh my God, what's going on here?
Well, something.
I don't know what's going on. I'll be right. Normal service.
No, your camera's good now. It just seems like you got a little covering on it. It seems like it's blocked somewhat. I can see the bottom of your shirt. Hello, everyone. There we go.
It's another camera. I've got 2 cameras.
Oh, okay.
We just need a Ben Wishaw. Speaking of cues.
Yeah, that's something else I like that the franchise used to do. They would have no problem bringing the same actors back to play different characters. Like they had, you know, Joe Don Baker play Brad Whitaker in Living Daylights, and he came back to play Jack Wade, who I absolutely loved in Goldeneye Tomorrow Never Dies. That was pretty cool. And like we said, Burt Kwok played a couple roles, and Charles Gray played a couple. Anthony Dawson is both Professor Dent and Blofeld.
Yep. Well, hang on, he was the voice of Blofeld, though.
Yeah,
right?
well, no, he wasn't the voice. He was the
he was
the body
hand.
and yes,
body, the hand stroking the cat that you
That's
never
right.
got to.
Yeah, that's right. So, and it was a different voice. Someone else.
Yeah, it was a different voice actor, but that was, that, and I kind of wouldn't be opposed to them doing that again. I mean, people have said, oh, they must have to need a brand new cast for the next era for all the people at MI6, and I'm like, why? It's like people were fine accepting the fact that it was the same Q, the same M, and the same Moneypenny for decades. I mean, and they suspended their disbelief of the fact that it's a new actor playing the role, like whatever. So I don't see why they couldn't bring back Ben Whishaw or Naomi Harris.
I would be fine with that, and especially I don't think that we actually got a moment where Ralph Fiennes had the opportunity to shine as M.
He had an interesting arc going from the guy who's very politically minded and worried in Skyfall about all the fallout from the missing list that never gets resolved to the guy who's very paranoid about the Nine Eyes program in terms of its ethics to the guy who's going to invent a super weapon for the sake of helping out his agents, which gets out of control to the point that he can't even defend it anymore. And see, I love how disheveled he is in the climax of that movie, just watching on the screen, and he's like, "Don't tell them anything just yet." He's just like losing it, you know.
Well, and that it's funny when, again, going back to No Time to Die, because of the announcement of it, knowing that it was Daniel Craig's last film, and then it being announced for a time that we knew the movie was not going to come out, like end of production, marketing had just begun, and then everything closed and you couldn't go inside, and unless you were, anyway, we know. And knowing it was there was so much speculation as to what was going on. Was Rami Malek going to be Julius? No. Was it going to be an adaptation? Were they going to remake On Her Majesty's Secret Service? All of this speculation came out, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And my biggest thing, because I got so cynical about it, because we were living in a time where everyone was being sequestered and there was stuff going on, and they had to do reshoots and sort of rework the plot to nanobots as opposed to a virus.
I don't think they did that, but
okay.
Because I remember before the first delay, back in February 2020, the tickets were already going on sale on this Russian movie theater website, and the runtime was already listed as 163 minutes, which is the same runtime the movie has now. And I thought, I mean, they could have gone back and reshot it, but I don't know if they would have cared enough to do that. But then again, you might be right, because it seems pretty clear they're going with Dr. No. And then at one point, one of his henchmen even addresses him as such. It's like, the first shipment's on the dock, ready for pickup, Doctor. And it kind of cuts a little bit as he gives a reply. And like you said, they're echoing that clearly with the set design and his attire and his hairstyle and the manner of speech, all that kind of thing. And then they just kind of, don't go that direction. And they kept needling that in the marketing of it. And into the, so yeah, they may have changed their minds at some point. But I see that they're, M getting, like, to your point of M getting his time to shine, you only see him really get angry that one time in that movie with Bond when he's coming back and not giving him what he wants. Mm-hmm. And he says that great line, if you have nothing left to give, you're irrelevant, and, get out. And I'm like, that's the same thing Safin would say, or that he does say. Like the daughter, oh, you're not used to me? You don't want to? Fine, get out of here. And except Mallory's restrained enough that he's not just going to use the weapon to, he's not going to use it to get rid of all of his political dissidents or anything like that. Where Safin's crazy enough that he's going to, because it's like, people were complaining about that. I'm like, well, the movie is more about Pandora's box. Yeah. And it's like, if you're going to have Bond save the world, and if you're going to kill him, it's got to be something worthwhile. It can't just be another villain.
Yeah.
It's Pandora's box. It's like first MI6 has it, then Spectre gets it, then the CIA tries to get their hands on it, then the GRU is potentially going to get it, and the Japanese Self-Defense Force apparently going to get it, And then Sappin's like the worst case scenario is going to get it. So in a way, the whole movie is about trying to stop Pandora's box from exploding and trying to close it again.
It's
Absolutely.
like a farce, isn't it? It's like a farce. It's like someone's got got a suit, got a briefcase with like some papers in it,
Like
but actually it's
Yeah.
not papers. It's a pair of frilly knickers. And it's like, oh no, can't let that say. And it's just like it bounces from one person to another, and it's like, but yeah, it's crazy. But it's
Well, and the reason I just sort of revisit it is because of all the speculation as to what it was going to be, whether there were reshoots, what it was going to be about. When I finally got sort of, am I ever going to see this movie? And Kat, we had this conversation back before it came out. Is it actually going to come out? Please tell me. And it was all I want to see. And this is the lowest point that I ever had, was all I want to see is James Bond die. And then at the end of the movie, I want to see the words, James Bond will return. That will make so many people go like, what? And it will make me so happy, just because, you know what? Everything is off the table. Like, everything. Let's just do whatever. And I think that it was a perfect end to this run. Usually, like, people complain about or not complain, but they note. They say it's been analyzed. People say that On Her Majesty's Secret Service is their Bond. That is the best James Bond movie. When they go to watch a Bond movie, that's it. There are going to be people who watch the Craig era, and it's like, no, I pretty much get everything I need from that. And fine. Like, I just love that every possibility, and when it has been somewhat explored.
Well, it's that they remade the Ipcress file earlier this year for television, and it's like, is it going to be a modern update like all the Bond films are? No, it was a period film. So I don't understand. I mean, I'd love to see a period Bond film.
That's another interesting appeal that the franchise has. Is like, if somebody asks, well, what movies would I point them to? And it's like, well, I can't really point to any one movie and say that's Bond, because each era brings a completely different tone and style to it, And it's like, yeah, we've done period Bond films, in the 60s and the 70s, those movies, but it would be interesting with modern sensibilities not being as, I guess, as goofy as some of the Roger Moore films or some of the Connery films. It's like, with modern cinematography, modern image quality, and set design. Like, I just saw Don't Worry Darling last week, and the plot problems and script problems aside, it looks gorgeous. It's like, I would love to see that type of 60s the Bond era, that era looking that good, and it would look that good for a Bond movie, because they always strive to take you to the best of places anyway.
Yeah.
But that's also, I know that have you guys ever heard of Robert Meyer Burnett?
Of course.
Oh, okay, so Kat has, Tony hasn't. Anyway, he said, like, why would you go back and revisit that era? Because you already have that era represented authentic to its time.
But that's the thing. I mean, the Bond novels are really of the 1950s. They're not really of the 1960s, right?
Oh, this is perfect, Tony.
Yeah.
This is I'm sorry. This is the clumsiest segue.
Yeah.
But,
so
do you have a dream?
Yes, I have a dream.
This is the second best I have a dream speech.
Maybe the third or sixth.
Maybe the sixth. Yeah. The 007th.
Yeah, it was. It's right behind.
Just tell us the dream.
Anyway, whatever. So I kind of, I'm not sure whether it should be a film or maybe a mini series, but I would love to see an R-rated adaptation of Moonraker set in the 1950s, maybe even in black and white. Someone like Tom Hiddleston as Bond, maybe Damian Lewis as Hugo Drax, and actually adapt book with and it's got such a great ending, and
Well, for everyone who's not familiar with the book, what is the plot of the novel Moonraker?
so basically, spoiler alert.
For a
No,
book from 1950.
Okay, well, no, I'm not actually going to go into spoiler alert. So basically, there's a very charismatic war hero, because it's set in the 1950s. There's a very charismatic war hero from obviously from the Second World War, Sir Hugo Drax, who is a philanthropist and very well known international bon vivant. And the book starts off with there's a club called Blades, where it's M's club, and he goes there and plays cards and drinks brandy and eats steak. Basically, that's why M is always in such a good mood. So they play a game of cards with Hugo Drax, who's also a member, and Hugo Drax cheats but still loses, because which they then reuse later on in I can never remember if that was in the Book of Goldfinger as well, but I think they reused that bit from Goldfinger. I can't remember because my mind is complete mush. But yeah, so it starts off that way, and you go through, and they're sort of delving into his past, and it seems that he has a kind of a hidden past. He was found after a particular engagement during the Second World War with amnesia, and all of his platoon are dead.
Right.
And he's the sole survivor of his platoon, and he becomes this sort of war hero, blah, blah, blah. And this takes place about 15 years later. Very long story, slightly shorter. He has a large missile, like a V2, which is silver, called the Moonraker, and he is going to blow up London, or he's going to... so basically, he has near Victoria, it's a little park. Interesting story, actually. There's a little park near Victoria Station that Tom Baker used to sleep rough in when he was unemployed in the early 70s, and there's a homing device in a statue in that park, and the Moonraker rocket is going to... It's out somewhere in Kent, and it's going to blast off, and it's going to head straight for that beacon. And I don't want to say any more than that, because that's, that would give too much away. But that's basically what Moonraker is. It's a really cool story, and it's the whole.
Well, it all takes place in England. It all has.
Takes place in England. Yeah.
It's about launching missiles. Like the Moonraker is essentially a nuclear weapon delivery device, and Drax in this is prepared to start a nuclear war. Like, it is a very interesting Bond story, and obviously Moonraker the film was cashing in on Star Wars at the time, and that's the way it worked out. But the book itself is very much in the same vein. It's almost like, imagine the first act of Thunderball, but that's the whole movie.
Yeah.
And it's amazing. Yeah. It's a great book. I think, is it the third book, second book?
Third book, yeah. It was Casino Royale, Live and Let Die, and then Moonraker, I think. Yeah.
I think as well, because those are the only three I read.
Oh, yeah.
Well,
yeah.
To your point, Scott, you brought up that our friend Robert Meyer Burnett said, what would be the point in going back and making a 60s era Bond film? We've already done that. Well, the response I would give to that is that look at all the World War II movies from the 50s and the 60s. They were very stale. They were very cheesy. Look at World War II movies of more modern age, like Saving Private Ryan or the Band of Brothers series or the Pacific series. It's much more dramatic. It's not cheesy. It's much more intense. And in that respect, I feel if they were to go back and set Bond in the 60s, it wouldn't be as goofy, especially if they tried to add the more realistic kind of Craig version of it, but still have the charm of the character there. And that could be a really interesting thing to do. Then again, it might not be as authentic to its time, because I'm reminded of something that Edgar Wright said on the commentary for Last Night in Soho. He's like, you got to be careful with nostalgia, because more or less you're going to be prompted to romanticize something that you probably shouldn't be romanticizing and changing it. But the thing with Bond is that it's fantasy, so we can accept if they were to do a historical, a period piece, it would be the fantasy version. It wouldn't be the accurate version. So that, in a sense, to me, would be the reason to go back and do that, even if they don't do that forever. If they were to do like a miniseries or a special set in that era with what that would look like and be like with modern sensibilities, I think would be really cool. But seeing as one of the staying powers for the franchise is that each movie is very topical in its plot and its tone, then they probably won't do that.
Well, it's really interesting. When I was a kid, there was a writer called John Gardner who wrote 14 Bond novels in the 80s, and he had a whole story arc of Spectre. There's a guy called Rouhani who was the new leader of Spectre, and it was a really neat little thing. But back in the 60s, he wrote a series of books that started with The Liquidator, and it was a character called Boise Oaks. They made a film of that with the guy Rod Taylor was in it.
Nice.
And Boise Oaks is kind of like James Bond if he was like a craven coward. So basically, what happens is he accidentally blows up. He's a tank. He's a tank operator in the Second World War, and he accidentally manages to end a battle by prematurely killing the whatever. It's something like that. Anyway, so about 15 years later, his commanding officer remembered this great war hero who's this just complete he's like a drunken buffoon, and decides to mold him into a secret agent. And it's basically like a comedic version of James Bond written in the 60s. And the first book was written in 64, which was the year that Fleming died, right?
Yeah, August 12th, 64.
Yeah. So it's a kind of a weird thing. And the film came out, I think, in 66, 67. But yeah, and it's a really interesting. I think he wrote like 4 or 5 of these books, and I think they're moderately successful. I don't think any of them got turned into a film apart from the first one. But yeah, it's pastiches. You get all these pastiches, and it's kind of, and say you had the Our Man Flint and the Matt Helm films.
Mm-hmm.
So there are a lot of films from the 60s that really don't hold up now. I mean, the first 2 Harry Palmer films are great. The less, but $1 Billion Brain,
Well, and back to like why we're here, especially just because today, 60 years ago, Dr. No opened, and I watched it today. I don't know why I keep saying that like it's a badge of honor. I probably watch it every other week anyway. But it's like watching it again today, it's like this is sort of timeless. The only thing that, like, there's a little bit of goofiness. There's a little bit of, there's obviously early 60s production value, but the story is engaging. The characters are engaging. It's okay. We got a cop who's going, like, we got a secret agent who has a license to kill, who's going. There's car chases, fist fights, sexy ladies, topless Connery, like, and his real hair Connery, I might add.
Real, all over.
All over. Well, I do appreciate. No, I'm not going to say that I appreciate Diamonds Are Forever Connery back hair. When he's got hair like up here, he's like a gorilla.
He's got motion picture Shatner arm hair.
He's got his Zardoz sweater on.
Oh yeah, but no, exactly, and that's kind of the problem with Diamonds Are Forever, is that it doesn't transcend its time like the first 4 movies did.
Well, and also that was a situation that sort of happened with with Saltzman as well. When was Saltzman's last production outing?
His last was Man with the Golden Gun, 2 films later. But
Okay.
I recall when we did our Diamonds Are Forever review, I was having a hard time with the recap because the plot seemed so nonsensical, how we got from point A to point B or whatever, and I was having trouble. Like I remember liking it as a kid because it just, all the little set pieces and the funny stuff there, but yeah, it doesn't age out as well, especially with things like Mr. Wint and Mr. Kid, or the magic trick with the gorilla thing. It's like, and then the weirdness of the Blofeld with the what is going on here, and the bad effects with the
with the guy on fire.
Yeah, it's just certain things.
Crispin Glover's dad.
Yes,
That's
Julian
right.
Glover.
Dad.
No, Julian Glover's a different guy.
Bruce Glover.
Bruce Glover. Julian Glover was Lex Luthor's dad.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, Jill St. John, Tiffany Case
That's
did.
John Glover. John Glover.
That's John Glover. Who's Julian Glover?
Julian
Glover.
Glover.
Julian Glover was General Veers.
General
Yes,
Veers
that's
and
correct.
Walter Donovan.
Yes. Anyway, that has been our retrospective of all the Glovers that we know.
Yeah. And so.
And Donald, don't forget Donald.
Donald Glover, of course. This is America.
Yeah.
The childish Gambino.
So, yeah, it's like 60. Yeah, so, what's our next topic? So I forgot to mention, also mentioned at the Christie's auction was that Ian Fleming's gold-plated typewriter sold for £56,000 back in 1955.
Holy moly.
55, right?
Yeah.
Not 65.
55. That was the weird
Yeah.
thing. They were sure about that. Gold-plated 1955.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, yeah. Happens. I'm sorry.
I say 60th anniversary, Ian Fleming trying to create this character. That means we have to raise a toast to Ivor Bryce, the guy who's more or less the realistic inspiration for the character.
Yeah.
What is the science of bird watching? Ornithology?
Yeah,
Ornithology, yeah.
Well, thank you, James Bond, for being the most boring name in Birds of the West Indies. The original James Bond book. Well, I don't.
Fun topic.
I was gonna get into. I wanted to talk about our pitches for what we would do as the
yes.
Bond movie.
Right, one more quick thing here for Dr. No related.
You go.
How do you think it would have been different, better or worse, if Noel Coward had accepted the invitation to play Dr. No? Because he wrote back under the note, he's like, no, like, I'm not going to do it. But what if he did? What do you think that would have been like?
Oh, very good, sir. Very good. Mr. Bond. Oh, Mr. Bond.
Well,
Oh,
and
no,
again,
why are my hands not touching themselves to this metal rod?
I don't know, because I don't know. You know what? I do not have a mental image of Noel Coward. I don't know how that performance would go. What else was Noel Coward in?
No, he was a playwright, and he was also an actor as well, but he was a famous playwright.
But I know who he is as a playwright. He wrote Breakfast at Tiffany's, right? And then
No,
that's Truman Capote?
Mm-hmm.
Then I don't know who Noel Coward is. Please enlighten me.
Well, yeah, he was a playwright. He
What did he write?
I've got it's. He wrote.
See?
We're not here. Folks,
I just want to know if I'm the only idiot.
No,
a lot of plays, mostly in the 1920s.
Mad Doc's an Englishman.
Never heard of it.
That's true. But I remember seeing photos of him and seeing the way he'd give interviews, and I'm like, I could totally picture this. And he's a bit shorter than Joseph Wiseman, a bit more round, but I'm like, I think it on the one hand, they wouldn't have to use, yellowface, like they did with Joseph Wiseman and playing the character.
Was Noel Coward
It's
part?
Designed for Living. That was the play I was thinking of.
I don't.
Designed for Living.
I just,
know-
there's a statue of him sitting on a bench at his old house in Jamaica still.
I've never been there.
Because he wrote poetry as well, but I thought that would have been neat because that would have been like a lot of prestige to have gotten him in the movie. and yet I guess the reason he said no is he probably thought it was below his purview. But
His pay
when
grade.
when I think of him, I actually think of Eric Idle in The Meaning of Life. Isn't it
Oh.
good us to have a yeah?
Yeah, isn't it frightfully good to have a dog?
That's him doing Noel Coward. But yeah, Design for Living was one of the plays that we were supposed to do at college, I think.
Hey, here's a picture of him from. Oh wait a minute.
It looks like I'm staring at a flashlight rectangle. Thank you for your
God,
palm
It's
beacon.
not gonna work. Damn it. Oh wait, let me try and pull it up on a darker image here so you can see.
I wish I had downloaded more images of Noel Coward to my computer.
Yeah, because you can't. Let's see. Here we go.
No, thank you, Tony. Don't do it. It's a trap.
Let's see if that kind of. No, it's not gonna work.
No. Do you have a color printer?
No.
Okay. Well then,
That's not picture that
we would
I mean,
invite
no,
you.
he's not. I should rephrase that. He's not. The reason I said you wouldn't have to do yellow face is he's not Asian is that he still looks in passing kind of similar to.
Len Wiseman.
Yeah.
Okay.
Joseph Wiseman. Yeah.
Joseph Wiseman, not Len Wiseman. Len Wiseman
he's
directed
more-
Underworld.
He's a lot more jowly than Len Wiseman.
I thought that was
I
funny.
mean,
so now
Which would be cool.
you want our pitches now?
yes,
I would, yeah.
I've done mine. You do yours.
Oh, you did. You wanted that. You know, I meant as far as updating the older books, I would have liked to see a novel accurate adaptation of Live and Let Die because that story is very different. It's
a bit
it's-
problematic.
well, I mean, get rid of the problematic aspects of it because it's like a treasure hunt in terms of the plotting.
Yeah. Oh, definitely.
Or if you were to do something very after what they've done with the Craig era, especially after No Time to Die being big and bombastic, I would want something. Launch it with something low key, like something espionage. Don't do it in the Jason Bourne, Jack Ryan feel, but something. But yeah, like take them around to some exotic, kind of like Casino Royale. Keep it simple. You know, don't like just follow the KISS rule of screenwriting. Keep it simple, stupid. Don't overdo it. Like a very simple espionage story. Maybe there's a simple MacGuffin, some file that he's got to go after.
Well, and not only that, but you could actually infuse modern sensibilities to the characters who were at the time written problematically.
Oh, just a thing. I think I know where you would know Noel Coward from.
Okay.
The Italian Job.
Dude, I'm so sorry. I've never seen The Italian Job except for the end. I know.
Oh, God.
And as soon as we get on a Noel Coward podcast, we can talk all about it next week on our Noel Coward podcast called Things Scott Doesn't Know. Scotty Doesn't Know, a podcast.
Sorry. Carry on, Catherine. Sorry about that.
But yes, I would want it to be a low-key espionage story that it doesn't get over. Don't overdo it. The plot. Don't do all the everything they do in the Jason Bourne series with the smartphones and the satellites and the drones and all that kind of crap. Like get rid of all that. But also don't overdo it necessarily. Like you can do the fantasy stuff at a point, but if I'm going to launch it, focus it on make it more of a character-driven piece like Casino Royale was. If you want to hook the audience on whoever the new actor is going to be. And then take us to some great locations as well, but also places we haven't been before. Like the Craig era spent a lot of time in Italy. We don't need to go back there, at least not for a while. They spent a little bit of time in Jamaica, but there's plenty of other tropical places they could go. But so keep the plot kind of interesting. Don't overdo it, but I just kind of want it to be simpler, kind of like Dr. No plays sort of like a detective story, if you will, up until the climax.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd like to launch with something like that, and maybe over time with each successive installment, not that you're doing an ongoing storyline, but each successive installment it can get like a bit bigger and more true to the formula in a way.
Yeah, that would be. And do you have a title in mind?
No, that's one thing I'm terrible at. I'm terrible at coming up with titles for things.
Well, there are a couple of titles that are still left over, like Property of a Lady.
Yep.
The Hildebrand.
Rarity. Yep.
Rarity. Yeah. What? How do you pronounce it?
Risico, I think.
Risico. Yes.
Risico.
Risicchio. Anyway, Everything or Nothing. You could still have one.
Yep.
But yeah, there's no shortage of titles. I'm sort of going the other way because if I were to make a James Bond movie, I just want to take something and make it into sort of a spin-off. And I want a Felix Leiter movie. And yeah, I think it would be interesting because then James Bond would show up twice in the movie. And then Felix would have to actually deal with the aftermath or support James Bond in his adventure. I don't care what the adventure is. The story is irrelevant to me. But I think it would be interesting to see the flip side. You could have Jeffrey Wright. You could have any of. I guess he's the only living Leiter left. Is David Hedison still alive? I think he would be the last one.
He's in his
Well, I think the guy
90s, isn't he?
Living Daylights is probably still alive.
Oh,
He was
yeah,
a younger
yeah.
actor.
Oh, that guy. Yeah. I forgot about him. He's very vanilla.
Yep.
But my ideal casting of Felix
Why do you
Leiter,
think they got rid of him?
they got rid of all of them until David Hedison showed up in the subsequent film.
I have a guess as who you're going to say for your ideal casting.
Kat, take a stab at it.
John Hamm.
That's right. John Hamm as Felix Leiter. You put that on the poster, it'll sell tickets, I tell you. So that's my pitch.
Felix Leiter, the movie.
And let me guess, Ricky Gervais as James Bond.
Oh, no, you know what? You could bring back Michael Madsen. You could bring back Halle Berry.
Well,
But who would you pick for James Bond in that adaptation?
Oh, that's a good question. Because none of this is ever going to happen. I would...
But well,
Ooh.
given that John Hamm would be channeling the Jack Lord version of Felix Leiter, then what type of Bond would be as a foil to him or a good a partner that you can imagine that would be a good sidekick to John Hamm?
James
That-
McAvoy? Or is he
Ooh.
too short? Is he too short?
Well, I don't think, that's what cameras and heels are for. Have you seen the size of the wedges that Robert Downey Jr. wears underneath those baggy pants? But I don't know. Who would be the Bond? I'm kind of with Tony on this. I think Hiddleston. I really enjoyed The Night Manager. He's, how old is Hiddleston? Early 40s now?
Late 30s.
Late 30s. I apologize, Mr. Hiddleston.
So.
But yeah, I think that would be an interesting thing. And as long as you took the entrance of James Bond in that particular movie as being serious, it wouldn't be sort of a drop-in cameo, but it's like there are big explosions. Like it is an action scene,
Yeah, he's
or
41. Oh, yeah, 41. Okay, fair enough.
okay. Well, I feel like I've failed as a human because I am 3 years older. But I think that as long as you dealt with the appearance as seriously, the appearance of James Bond as seriously as Jack Lord as Felix Leiter was taken in Dr. No, I think it would be great to see the flip side of that particular adventure.
Yeah,
and
I've always
what the Americans had to do.
I've always wanted to see a Bond and Felix buddy movie because the fact that they're not just friends because they're on the same side. You can tell there's a history there that we never get to see. And so that would be fun to see
It'd be like them going on holiday together. The vacation. What about another remake of National Lampoon's Vacation, but with Bond and Leiter instead?
I'm fine with that. They put a dog on the roof.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Obviously.
Totally. Chevy Chase is James Bond. But yeah, so that would be my pitch. I don't know, guys. Is there anything else in terms that is striking when it comes to the history, the legacy of James Bond? We haven't really gotten into the music in terms of favorite theme songs. Are there favorite gadgets that you have?
Well, I'll say that my favorite actor was Sean Connery.
Well, Timothy Dalton has entered the chat.
And what about you, Tony?
Yeah, I would actually go sort of between Connery and Dalton. Yeah, I think Dalton had the killer instinct, but Connery really loved headbutting people. So.
Oh, and Moore loved the judo chop.
He did. And the safari suit.
Yeah. I've always liked, as far as gadgets go, the watch. I mean, yeah, they always do different things, but I've always loved the watch. Particularly the laser watch that Brosnan uses to get out of the train.
Well, isn't it funny? Isn't it funny that that you have watches today, smart watches that do all these crazy things, yet the watch that Daniel Craig had was just a run of the mill Omega wristwatch.
Well, and it's funny because he's like, "What does this do?" And then Q says, "It tells time."
Yeah.
But then he, like he says, "Oh, you were expecting an exploding pen." We don't really go in for that anymore. But then they did in the very next movie, the exploding watch.
Yes. Oh, all okay. So, and what are your least favorite moments in any James Bond movie?
Probably that part of the clinic in Thunderball with the what's her name?
Oh, with the assault.
Yeah, that.
Yeah, the mink
that
glove.
Really.
And then,
That's
I can
really
use the mink glove;
unpleasant.
it'll make it all better. And she's like,
Mhm.
"Dude, tell me," like, really?
Yeah, that's really unpleasant.
That's got to take the cake.
Yeah, I
for
think
me.
I find it very hard to disagree with that. Yeah.
I think the closest they've come to something that cringy in the modern era was probably in Skyfall, where Bond's like, "Oh, you're a sex slave," blah blah blah, and then he sneaks up on her in the shower, and you see that she's afraid because she doesn't know who it is, and she's like trembling, and then it's Bond. Oh, she embraces him. I'm like, really? And then he just chooses not to save her for no apparent reason, even though he's got the loaded gun in his hand, and he does that slick trick like a second later to get out of it, and it's like, you could have saved her, dude. You know?
Yeah, it's. Yeah.
You guys are so higher minded than I am. I was gonna say the pigeon double take.
Oh god, the pigeon double takes.
Oh, that
pretty
was another
bad.
gag.
And the dog as well. The dog double takes as well.
There is a dog double
And
take.
then there's the man who is the location manager or something, or one of the second unit directors or whatever for when they were shooting in Italy. He was in both Moonraker and The Spy Who Loved Me, doing the same gag, checking his drink when he saw the Lotus drive out of the water, and then when he saw the gondola come up on the. That was another gag they did.
Also, don't forget when is it VJ, the tennis player?
Yeah,
Yes.
VJ Armitage.
And he plays the diegetic James Bond theme, and Roger Moore walks past and says, "I like the tune," or something along those lines.
Yeah, that was fun.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a fourth wall breaking thing, but it's like, okay, they did it once. It was kind of funny, but. And then Cars, of course, probably DB5. Most people associate that more with Connery, even though it's been used more in the Craig era. And I think even though he doesn't use the ejector seat, I think the No Time to Die sequence is probably the best use of the DB5 because it just looks so good, especially with the sensible and the Gatling guns and the donuts and that was pretty cool.
Yeah.
Well, and the barrage of the combat shotgun going in on the
Right.
Like it was it.
The ice from the beginning of the movie.
Yeah.
She's getting shot at from under the ice, and she gets shot at through the window.
Well, but also that was a situation and as much as I know that there's a vocal contingent on the internet who really do not like. My dad bought No Time to Die on Blu-ray. He watched it, and then the next time I saw him, because I had been raving about it, and he was like, "Get this out of my house." He hated it that much, and I was like, I don't get it. What's wrong? So, but the moment in the DB5 after doing all that sweep, and then the guy with the robot eye shows up and starts shooting at that window.
Primo.
Like that moment is him going to kill Madeline is what convinces Bond that it's like, fine, I trust you because he really wants you dead. Like, that is it. I'm not going to kill you, but if he will, and then it's like, okay, fine. Like, it is.
I go.
That is a classic Bond moment, or at least in the spirit.
That. I travel past that station probably 2 or 3 times a week. That prison, 2 or 3 times a week.
That's awesome, man.
It's like I'm pretty certain, judging by the technology on the outside, that they don't have any of that shit in there.
Oh, fair enough. I don't care.
But it
I
is
do.
pretty cool.
Yeah. Oh, all of it. I would love to go on sort of a European uh, filming location tour of the accessible James Bond locations.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, like you can go to the dam in Austria, do the dam jump from Goldeneye.
Or what I'm going to call it Pia Zadora, but that's not what it is.
Peace Gloria.
That's the one. Pia Zadora is very different.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would totally do that. Kat, is it too much trouble to ask for? I just have to go and I have to go pee.
Yeah, I can man the ship.
Thank you very much. I'll be back in a second.
Yeah, but Belmarsh, yeah, it was odd seeing that because
Right.
it's like 3
With
miles from where I live. It's like
the whole Hannibal Lecter type thing with moving the cage up the hallway.
yeah,
Ridiculous.
yeah. It's, what, and this is for one person, right? This is
Yeah,
for
and I'm like,
one
is
person.
the idea that there's a bunch of other little cells off of there and they can get in the chain? Like, I don't know. It's just like, oh, it looks cool, so we're gonna do that. But that's where they also put that homage to his death in "You Only Live Twice," where Bond says, "Die Blofeld," die, or not living down. You only live twice, where Bond says, "Die Blofeld, die," and he starts trying to strangle him to death.
Yeah.
That was there. But there's actually more. So a lot of Roman mythology in that film too. They drew heavily on that. Not many people comment about that in the.
Well, no, it's one of those. It's one of those things that it's the whole the whole background to that. It's interesting. There was so one of the weird things is that I think in the Victorian era, one of the first they retranslated Greek and Roman mythology. And you had two really. This sort of after in the early 20th century, you had Bullfinch's mythology, and you had Robert Graves's mythology. The Bullfinch was all the Roman stuff, and Robert Graves did all the Greek stuff. And it's basically the same stuff, but they changed some of the names because reasons.
Like you have Heracles is the original name in Roman, changed Hercules in there, and then even in the movie they flip things around. Like you have the mask in the beginning. It's like Janus, the two faces of Janus, and it's the also reflecting the doll-like, childlike atmosphere of it. Even his name, Lucifer Sapphon. That's Lucifer, of course, is Roman for Venus.
The morning star.
Yeah, the morning star. And then in the Christianity's quest to demonize every religion that wasn't their own, they decided, well, if Venus is only brilliant right before dawn as a morning star, then it's being too prideful. And as it disappears into the sun, the rising sun, it's like being ensconced in hellfire or consumed by hellfire. So that's going to be evil now. It's like, that's so stupid. But that's why it's called, because in other cultures, in Roman mythology as well, it's an intellectual bringer of light and the gift of light to the world, which is what he's doing from his island, whereas the name Sapphon is Arabic meaning boat. And he's using the boats to send it all out. It's like, okay, I see that. And then you have Primo, the Cyclops. And unlike in the original story where Odysseus uses the sheep to escape the Cyclops, Cyclops uses the sheep to catch Bond. Blofeld not only talks about Mount Olympus and coming down like gods, but you have the three seers with the eye carrying it around there. Carrying that. Then you have the reason it's called Heracles is because presumably the person wielding it is going to be protected by it. It's not going to be encoded to kill them.
Yeah.
And that's why Bond's death is the way that it is. Because in the Roman myth, I can't remember the name of the demon, but Heracles and his wife are trying to cross the river, and he gets across just fine. And then she can't get across, so this demon shows up and offers to help her, and she's naive and accepts his help. And he tries to steal away from her, and Heracles sees it and shoots him with a poison-tipped arrow. And as he lays dying, he gifts his poison tunic to her, saying, "Oh, my valued opponent, and give this to him at a later date." And she does it. He puts it on. He's contaminated with it. He's immortal, so he can die, but he can't be near his wife anymore. So he asks his best friend to help him build a funeral pyre, and he dies.
And he burns himself to death. Yeah, but and then he ascends. And this is where a lot of people think that's where the Jesus legend comes from. One of the places, because he burns himself. He burns away his mortal self, and then becomes a god.
Yeah, and because in this story's purposes, of course, Madeline would never accept a gift from Safin in that context. So they're like, oh, we'll just have it where he shoots him and he just gets him directly. But that's again, it's all the whole thing is like playing up the Roman mythology with Q. I can't remember the name of the friend of the mythology. He being the friend who helps him build his pyre by calling in the missile strike.
Anestus.
Anestus. Okay, yeah.
Anestus.
And I can't remember the name of the demon either. But it's like, but it's funny how it's like you have the duality in the characters. Well, people assumed, oh, Lucifer Safin, that must mean, oh, it's the devil, it's Satan. It's like, well, actually, no, it's Roman and Arabic, and it has nothing to do with that, which makes sense. He doesn't see himself that way either. But yeah, I haven't seen a Bond movie try and go for that much symbolism.
Aeolus, not Anestus. Anestus is someone that puts you to sleep before an operation, right?
Anestus.
Yeah.
Aeolus.
Aeolus?
I don't know.
But
so it's where it's where the moon was it one of the moons Jupiter.
Io, yeah.
Io is the moon of one of the moons of Jupiter. Yes.
Yeah.
I don't know what I walked back into, but thank you.
We were talking about the Roman mythology in No Time to Die.
Oh, lovely.
And now none of the other films really go for that type of, deep dive of mythology or anything like that. But I think that all the people who didn't like the movie, rest assured, they're never going to kill James Bond again. It was a unique opportunity they had.
You can't.
They did it. And which is why they put James Bond will return at the end. It's like,
yes,
new iteration, it'll be fine. It's like,
well, and again, at the time that it was anticipated to be released, my thought was, it was like, okay, well, this is it. I'm never going to see the last James Bond movie. Never. And that's true for all of us. They're going to be making James Bond movies as long as cinema exists. And when I got to see the last in the story, like they can never kill him again.
Right.
It's been done.
Yeah.
So I appreciate that I got to see the end of the story of James Bond, and I'm glad that Madeline and Matilde, got to live happily ever after. I hope.
I believe so. Yeah.
What if they did like a Kill Bill thing and it was Bond, Matilde Bond?
No.
Okay, fair enough. That's a good answer.
Do you think we're ever going to get that third Kill Bill film? Do you think that's ever going to happen?
If you'd like to discuss the Kill Bill films, when we do have a show called Bullets, Blades, and Babes. Is that what it's called, Kat?
Yes.
Okay, great. And we do that. But do you want it to? No.
I don't think he's going to do it simply because he's so obsessed with his 10 movie thing that he's just going to do something. Because he considers Kill Bill to be one movie because it was split in half by Weinstein. Therefore, I don't think he's going to have his 10th film be Kill Bill 3. And it's not going to be the Tarantino Star Trek either. It'll be something original that he hasn't gotten around to yet. So
yeah, I think it'll be something he wants to do. I can't imagine it being anything. I'd like to see him. I kind of want to see him do a sort of crazy space opera, but I want it to be completely. I don't want it to be like Star Trek. I want it to be like Planet of the Vampires or something. Just completely.
I know this is kind of blasphemy, but when I think about Quentin Tarantino doing a science fiction movie, it makes my head immediately go to Steven Soderbergh's Solaris. And I'm just like, I don't think that you guys belong together. And I know Solaris is a remake and that's why it's blasphemy, but yeah. This has turned into a general movie conversation and I'm flying with it.
As far as what else I would want to see with the franchise, I would still love it if they could get Spielberg to do one, but he won't. Apparently, he had misgivings about the fact that they wouldn't let him do Spy Who Loved Me, they wouldn't let him do Moonraker, and then somebody asked him about it many years later if he'd love to do a Bond movie still. He's like, they can't afford me.
Yeah.
Which is like a petty, kind of pissy little response, and it's like, Like, really? Or is it just that you're just upset because they didn't pick you the first 2 times?
Well, yeah, I think I would. I don't. I can. It's understandable.
I don't think you're remembering your Macquarie. What's it? No, not Macquarie. What's it? McClory. Kevin McClory.
Yeah, what about it?
Well, I'm just saying that there's always been a little bit of a push and pull when it comes to Hollywood personalities, rights, things like that. When it comes to the business that is show, making a James Bond movie behind the scenes can get very litigious. That's what made
Well, I think the reason
gap between License to Kill and Goldeneye. We could have had a third Dalton, but
the
no.
reason they didn't hire Spielberg at the time is even though he had Jaws on his resume at the time, he hadn't really done much else, and they weren't ready to hand over the keys to that. And then even though he followed that up with Close Encounters, which was amazing, they still weren't really sure that, because they had their own formula. He's got his own style, but I still think it would have been great if he actually gotten to do one.
Well, do you think Indiana Jones is the American James Bond?
Sort of. I mean, he's a very American type of character in terms of his personality and his goals, but it's also
his first name is Indiana.
It's Henry.
It's actually Henry, but his.
Okay, I'm talking about the poster. If I haven't heard anything, I'm thinking Indiana Jones. That dude's a Yankee.
That, and then because even characters like Jason Bourne feel like it could be any nationality if they just tweaked the story a bit. So yeah, Indiana Jones is more uniquely American in that way. But I feel they could still do it. I mean, Cary Fukunaga was the first American director they hired to do a Bond movie, and they weren't exactly very protective of it either. Because yes, in the past they always had British people doing it, but some of them, like who was it? Peter Hunt was an editor on the movies, and like, hey, you want to direct? And he did it. And John Glenn was second unit director, lore director, and editor as well, and then he got promoted to director. So it's like, if they're willing to hand it over to different people, I mean, I figure it would still be awesome if they could get Spielberg to do one. But c'est la vie.
If his next film is a massive flop,
Stevens?
Yeah.
The Fablemans?
What is I haven't even heard. What is Steven Spielberg's next film?
The Fablemans. It's like a sort of autobiography film in a way.
Oh yes, I have heard of that, and it's got Michelle Williams in it, doesn't it?
Yeah, Michelle Williams is his mom. Paul Dano is his father. I don't know the people playing him or the stand-in, obviously, but it's been getting rave reviews.
Fantastic.
Question: is there any other activity in the chat that we should?
Well, there are a couple things. Let's see. Ooh. Simone says the first book I read was Thunderball. I got it from a book exchange at my office. It's the paperback with the bullet holes in the cover.
Nice.
Tony, how many of the books have you read?
All of them.
Okay. Kat?
Including the John Garners and the Raymond Bensons and
nice.
I knew. I don't even know why I asked.
I read all the Fleming books, but it's been quite a while. I think I got those around 2008 at a used bookstore in town for like 75 cents to $2 a piece. Old paperback versions from like the 70s with the yellowed pages, and some of the pages were blue and gray and red. So if they do, I missed out. They did just recently on the 007 store website put out new editions, and I missed it. But maybe if next year they put an American release for them, I'd get them.
Well, that's an interesting thing about the later books. The obviously the first non-Fleming book was by Kingsley Amis, obviously Colonel's son, but that was obviously set pretty much in the same timeline. But then John Gardner's and Raymond Benson's books are all pretty much of their time, like the films were, and obviously they also adapted some of the films as well. But then Jeffrey Deaver did one, but then Sebastian Faulks did Devil May Care and set it in 1968, and it was basically Bond almost at retirement age, and he's just broken down and he physically, you think he's gonna die every time he gets into a confrontation. You really think he's gonna get his arse handed to him, but what they're doing at the moment is they're going back to the canon again, and they're doing everything in all. So it's like Trigger Mortis is set in is set just after Goldfinger.
And Forever and a Day is another one in that
Yeah.
continuity.
And that's set Forever and a Day is set before Casino Royale.
Yeah.
And then the latest one, which I can't remember the name of, is set just after Man with a Golden Gun.
Cool.
So, yeah.
Wait, question before we move on. What happened to Nick Nack?
Paddywhack.
Oh, Monsieur Bond, Monsieur, I fell down a hole.
I may be small, but I never forget.
Let me out of here. Let me out of here.
You didn't, James. Please tell me you didn't. You bloody well hell I did.
But he's alive at the end of The Man with the Golden Gun. So what happened to the guy?
Maybe they just set him free because there's like no. I mean, really, there's no reason for him to be. I guess he's upset because he lost out on whatever money in the island getting blown to smithereens. But I think he'd probably get over it in a little bit, and he's not going to chase Bond down for the rest of his life. And I don't think Bond cares enough to throw him in prison.
I'm sure Scaramanga had some money put by. I'm pretty certain.
Speaking
Anyone
of
with. Oh, yeah.
Nice.
Nice.
Found that in the Antique Book Store.
Monsieur Bond, Monsieur.
Oh, you know what? I wasn't going to outright ask you to do her.
Didn't some
Hello.
of the plot points in Colonel Sun make its way into some of the film? I can't remember.
No. Colonel Sun was Die Another Day. The bit
Oh,
at
okay.
the start. The bit at the start of because the bit at the start of because Colonel Sun has plastic surgery to look like someone else, and that's what they did in Die Another Day with Toby Stephens.
Mhm.
Colonel Moon.
Gustav Graves.
Colonel, I feel bad. I mean, Toby Stephens is great in the radio dramas of James Bond, but I think Gustav Graves is probably my least favorite Bond villain. It's just,
Yeah.
I get where they were going.
Yeah, but it's also cringy, especially when the actor who played Colonel Moon was so good, and because he says he's been overseas, he's trained at Oxford. I'm like, okay, so you're setting up a good foil to Bond, and then you don't use that. It's like,
Yeah.
Well, it is. The funny thing about that, and I don't know, Tony, am I reading into it? Is that when Colonel Moon or whatever, the guy who ends up being Gustav Graves, I forget his name, Colonel Moon, he basically rips off Drax's history.
Pretty much, yeah.
From the book.
Pretty much, yeah.
And anyway, and then you discover, so it's kind of weird. It's very weird. Now, my question is, when it comes to Die Another Day, which is worse? At the end of The World Is Not Enough, when James Bond says, I thought Christmas comes only once a year, or the entirety of Die Another Day?
Oh.
what's worse?
Like, if you had a choice.
Well, it's got to be the entirety of Die Another Day, because just about all of the Yo Mama stuff with Jinx, and just the fact that Zhao didn't get the diamonds out of his face, and nobody in prison apparently tried to rip them out of his face. But,
yeah, I mean, that's because he's such a badass, right?
Or when they missed the opportunity to say the line in the movie, like when he's sending him out to die on the bridge, and Bond thinks he's gonna get shot. And it's like General Moon should have said that, you live to die another day, Mr. Bond. That would have been perfect because they set him up for it. And I thought that's what the title was referring to, because it's like, oh, he's going to live. And then it's like, oh, they don't say it. But then he says it later.
It's because Madonna wrote a song.
Yeah.
And it was like, oh, I can't put this on an album. It's terrible.
Oh, man. You know what? And leading up.
The Bond song that never was, No Good About Goodbye by Shirley Bassey, that was written for Quantum of Solace and ultimately rejected. That was a great song.
It's funny that you bring up Quantum of Solace, because I was just going to say that getting ready for this show, the Bond theme that I listened most to this time was Another Way to Die.
Really?
Yeah. I was into it.
I'll admit that song fits the tone of that movie more than the Shirley Bassey song, even though I think the Bassey song is better. One of my favorite songs for Bond probably is "You Know My Name" by Chris Cornell, because
I love that.
Yes,
love that song.
That was
it
amazing.
Goes so well.
Duran.
And it goes so well with that prologue, with that pre-credit sequence, where he just turns around and fight and just kills that guy and gets his 00 license.
Oh, that's something else we got to ask. Favorite Bond movie? Mine is Casino Royale.
Daniel Craig one?
Yes.
Okay.
Because
Just checking.
Because obviously that Tijuana brass.
Yes.
Oh, so that's the wrong one, isn't it?
Isn't Burt Baccarat? Didn't he do anything?
He wrote the music, and it was
Orson
Herb
Welles.
Alpert. Herb
That is
Alpert.
that is my second favorite Orson Welles film. My first being the Muppet movie.
And we know that Scotty's favorite is License to Kill, of course, as we've spoken of. But Tony, what's your favorite?
Orson. I very much like Moon. No, I got, it's a weird thing. It's a weird thing.
Hashtag Dolly didn't have braces.
I think my favorite Bond film is probably Goldfinger. I like Goldfinger very much.
Have you ever seen it in theater?
I have. I saw it
Nice.
at the Prince Charles Theatre.
Wow.
Cinema.
Oh, that reminds me. I did see Dr. No in the movies. It was playing at not at IMAX, it was at a different theater back in August. That was wonderful.
I haven't seen Dr. No in the theater. I've seen Goldfinger in the theater. That was great.
Yeah. And it's one of the great things about that is it's kind of I don't know. See, this is the thing. I will quite easily go flip flop between Goldfinger and From Russia with Love because
it's not a bad flip flop, man.
Because it's like Red Grant is such a
badass,
fucking intimidating villain.
Yeah,
he is, and I feel he's very underused in that film. But at the same time, the energy of that movie, the life of it, seems sucked out once they kill him.
Yeah. Well, it's literally sucked out. Oh.
I think it carries through to the end. Like the only thing I won't forgive in Dr. No From Russia with Love is that stupid hand wave at the end. I hate that so much. But aside from that, I think it's great. And I think that it deflates it right at the end. That happens.
Best joke in a Bond movie.
Oh, I already told you.
No, it's got to be. What's he doing? He's attempting re-entry.
Yeah, I was gonna say that. Oh, that's true. That's a good one.
What on earth's Bond doing? I think it's attempting re-entry, sir.
That was great.
I hate to I don't know, sappy. One of my favorite Bond moments of all time would have to be when Pierce Brosnan meets Paris Carver, and the first thing she does is slap him across the face, and he says, because he hasn't said anything yet, I don't think, and he says, "It's something I said," and she goes, "How about I'll be right back?" And I always thought that was just the best way to introduce a chick. That was awesome.
Come to think of it, that's probably how most of his conversations would go with the ladies of the previous films. If he ever them again.
Yeah. And it was an excellent, sort of just reference to that. It's like, of course he said that.
Darling. I wish they did that, wrote that character a bit better, gave her more. But
I have a crazy idea now.
What's that?
If being this is your favorite Bond girl from that film, if they made a third Timothy Dalton movie and they started it off with Carrie Lowell's death,
sure,
would you go for that, or would you be more upset?
No, I would get it. It's a James Bond movie. Like, it's nice to have her back. But
it's just like I don't think there can be that many great tragedies in Bond's life, because it's like nothing will ever eclipse. Well, certainly in that version of Bond, nothing will ever eclipse Tracy, right? But obviously, Daniel Craig had Vesper. See, because the other cinematic Bond didn't have Vesper, right?
Right.
So they went with. So, oh my God, that's crazy.
Well, no, but it was the establishment of the character James Bond, and then when they decided to go to an emotional core, they went to On Her Majesty's Secret Service, get him married, kill the wife. Like, it is, that's where emotion sort of enters the James Bond series, right?
Yeah.
And then after that, and that's why it makes you feel more in touch with the character because you've seen that movie, even though they don't sit there and say, "Do you remember seeing this movie?" It's like, "This is Tracy." And then if like imagine, For Your Eyes Only is the first James Bond movie you ever saw, and you're like, "Who's Tracy?"
Yeah.
And then you're also sidewinded by the fact that he's, even with the 12-year difference from her death, that Roger's still way too old because she's listed as like 26, I think, on her gravestone.
Like
Because he was born in what, 1927, 1928, around there.
yeah. So if you're asking for continuity in the James Bond filmography, look at that gravestone and piece it together. Get back to us when the math checks out.
Actually, that would mean Roger would be about 15 or 16 years older, which I guess isn't. Yeah. But on that note, I'd say that Pussy Galore is my favorite Bond girl. Definitely.
Oh,
I love that she gives him back sass and goes toe to toe with him. That's great.
See, I've never read Goldfinger.
But the problem with that, well, in the book, she's very much a lesbian.
Yes, yeah. I've heard.
Very much. Whereas in the film, it's kind of just implied, right? And
yeah, which is like, you could turn off the charm. I'm immune.
Yeah, exactly. And then it's like, oh yeah, well, no, we're going to do this.
Yeah.
That sounds about right. That has been our review of Goldfinger.
And my favorite henchman.
Yeah, on second thoughts, yes, exactly. On second thoughts, either, actually, I think I'm going to go back to From Russia with Love, or Goldfinger 2.
Or Goldfinger 2.
Or Goldfinger 3, The Midas Touch.
Yeah.
Or Goldfinger 4. He's such a cold finger.
Yes. Coldfinger. It's the new gold.
2, 3, 4, 5.
Ah!
Yep. Happened again.
Zooks.
7, 8.
Zoons.
Let me see.
Well, we'll make Spectre 13 now because it's been in 12 of the canon films.
Well, I mean, of course, originally in the books, it's originally it was only in 3. It was designed for 3 films. I mean, really, Spectre really should have only been in 3 films, right?
Yeah.
But it's not in Diamonds Are Forever. The book is Diamonds Are Forever. I think is the fifth book. So I think that predates. I can't remember. I think that predates Thunderball, and obviously Doctor No. Doctor No was never a member of Spectre. So it's Goldfinger in the films wasn't affiliated with Spectre, was he?
No, not in the films. No.
No. Yeah. So that he's kind of the outlier, really, in the Connery films because. Everyone else seemed to be affiliated with Spectre in some way. Yeah. Although, of course, the thing is, Goldfinger worked with the Tongs, and
yes.
Dr. No was ex-Tong, an ex-Tong. So maybe there was, kind of some sort of connection through that. But, maybe that's just me overthinking again.
Oh no, it sounds it, and again, they're all sort of connected. And Goldfinger is the only one that really takes a break from Spectre at all. Hey, look at that
spacesuit from Moonraker with the
silver
gun.
suit.
Yeah. Oh, I like how the Funko Pop puts on the mole.
It does. And then I have I haven't opened this one yet either. This is Bond from the climax of No Time to Die.
Oh, no.
Oh, you know what? You should get some firecrackers.
Oh, is he? Because I would have thought at the end of the climax to No Time to Die, he would just be like a smouldering pile of ash, wouldn't he?
We can make that toy too. I was hoping that they would make one of this in his kimono, like the one that I'm wearing right now, but they just went for this one. But this one's cool too. Yeah, it's difficult to get them to stand up because they're a bit top heavy. Balance.
Well, that is a problem with the Funko Pop. Yeah.
Well, I mean, other Funko Pops have the nice base that they could sit on, so it's like so it doesn't fall over. But that's cool though.
Fair enough. All right. Is there? I don't know, guys. Do you have anything else you want to throw on? I'm kind of.
I would say
Yes, you do. Let's keep going.
Julius Snow is actually my favorite villain because he's just so something about him. It's
Reptilian.
very reptilian and different. Followed closely probably by Max Zorin. I mean, the movie you
Oh.
but Max Zorin is amazing as a Bond villain.
How much Max Zorin do you give to Christopher Walken, though?
What do you mean?
Yeah.
I mean, how much of it is the fact that Christopher Walken is a brilliant actor, or is Zorin actually a good villain?
He's not doing the whole Christopher Walken shtick in it at all. He's
No.
playing playing the character
No.
as written. I like that he comes across as a genuine psychopath. Like a lot of the Bond villains, Drax is socially like Stromberg, for instance. He has this evil plan, but he's just very monotonous about it. Unlike Drax, who is really cool because he's socially awkward. You could tell. You can tell he doesn't get out very much, which is kind of creepy. Whereas Stromberg is just kind of eating his chips or whatever, just kind of bored. But then Zorin is the type of psychopath who's the sadist in a way. He has fun with it. He smiles and turns glee when people get hurt. He's it's just something that I can't help but get my blood boiling and rooting for Bond to kick this guy's ass.
He's basically Donald Trump, right?
Who?
I think Zorin's smarter, but
Zorin?
Yeah.
Who would?
Yeah.
No, I
He's
thought
like-
Elliot Carver would have been more Trumpy.
he's more Ted Turner or Rupert,
Bill
or,
Gatesy?
Roger Ailes.
Murdoch, yeah.
Roger
Rupert Murdoch. Yeah, no, fair enough.
Oh, and of course, Lashif is probably Lashif would probably be my second favorite.
But again, I think that's more for the.
Is amazing. Safin is actually up there as one of my favorites as well. I really like that character in that role. But yeah.
I think Lashif is given a bit more credit again because of Mads Mikkelsen as opposed to the villain himself.
That's true. He is given, but I think what's good also about
It's
Lashif is that he's a multifaceted character. He's not just he's scared. He doesn't. He has dimensionality to him that he's not just I'm the bad guy or whatever.
Well, in that part where the guy is going to cut off the lady's arm, and Lashif doesn't say anything, and even the guy is he didn't even say no. You should find a better boyfriend.
Yeah, it's one of the reasons that I think Man with the Golden Gun is such a it's because I think the book is better than the villain in the book. The book is better than the villain, whereas in the film the villain is better than the film. He's a really interesting villain, but when you really think about it, it's he's this. I mean, he doesn't have a. There's no. So he's just a hired killer,
Right?
But it's such a.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, to be honest, the people he kills, 9 times out of 10 could be killed much more easily and more effective by a sniper.
Right, and it's just, but Christopher Lee just adds that gravitas to it, which is why he's another one in my top high on the list. But you're right, Scott. Mads Mikkelsen definitely does have something to do with it as opposed to the character, and I think it's something to be said about the fact that Peter Lorre, who I think has a passing resemblance to Mads as well, played him in the 1954 version, was pretty good. And then of course you had Orson Welles play him in the comedy one in '67. Can you think of 3 better actors to play the same character?
Peter Lorre does fluff his lines sometimes, though, because it's live. Because it's live TV.
Yeah. But that was even the way Lashif, the way his hair and his eyes, particularly in the torture scene where the shadows are falling on his face and you see that he's sweating and the way his hair is curled over like Peter Lorre. I'm like, this is so good. But yeah, that has something to do with it as well. But like I said, they could take the material and elevate it because they pilfer from the Bond books all the time.
They mix and match.
Yeah, nonstop. Like Oromov, I would say, is probably my favorite villain in GoldenEye, because I like that there was a personal angle there with Bond, and it was and he's actually kind of vicious and it's going somewhere. But the moment they reveal that Trevelyan's actually the bad guy, Oromov starts becoming the typical Russian guy who drinks too much and becoming a bit clownish, and you have that great non-twist where Bond tells him, this guy's a Cossack, right? And even though Oromov has every incentive not to believe a word Bond says, he still perks up at it. And it's ooh, he's going to go somewhere. But then he just gets shot. It's So then there's villains like that who have potential, and then they don't have their potential, don't get explored because they just get shot.
Well, yeah. Well, but also and I'm gonna have to say Kananga, but that is 100% to do with Yaphet Kotto.
Oh, totally amazing.
I think Live and Let Die is actually. It's funny that I didn't even mean to do that because I earnestly mean Yaphet Kotto as Kananga was great as Mr. Big, but Tiger Stripe says, I'm pretty sure Bond was first on TV for me, but the first time I watched properly was Live and Let Die. I still have a tarot deck.
Nice.
Speaking
James
of which, they
Seymour.
made a replica tarot deck of the ones from the film that you can get from the 007 store website, which is pretty cool.
I would love to get a deck of just the lovers.
Yeah,
Well,
I think there's something to be said of the fact that, only once have they had a lead female villain with Sophie Marceau in World Beyond Up. I would like to see them revisit that again, like another lead female villain, to see how that would go, especially in today's day and age, how they would play that. That would be something interesting, I think.
That would be cool, yeah.
Here's a question.
Uh-huh.
When it comes to Bond's relationship with M, what do you like more, the Bernard Lee relationship or the Judi Dench relationship?
But to me, it will be Bernard Lee simply because he is Miles. He is the Miles Meversey character. He's the admiral. He's the character, basically the character as written in the books. So I kind of have to. But I do really like the Judi. Although again, that was a weird thing because obviously that was a crossover from one reality to another, because
I would posit that people wouldn't have cared as much about her death in Skyfall had they not seen her in the 4 Brosnan films as well.
Agreed.
Because that means rather than only knowing her for 6 years, you've known her for 17 years. But I would have to pick Bernard Lee as well. I love how Bernard Lee would always chide Bond all the time and not really cut him any breaks. Like in Goldfinger, when they go to meet the guy from the bank, the treasury, and they're talking about the gold that Bond's going to take it with him. He's like, "No, you leave that there, Devils."
was it the Marseille deck they used in
Live and Let Die?
I think it was the Marseille deck. I thought, oh my god, what is
What?
going
Oh.
on?
You've dropped too much science again.
But that is just
But I would go Bernard Lee.
yeah.
I like that dynamic just because, well, and again, you're right. I don't like a tale of two Denches. There's something about the superior and mutual respect of the Brosnan era that becomes more matronly in the Craig era. And that transition, I'm just like, I don't care about the undercurrents of how you do your job. I just want your job to go well. I love Judi Dench's M. I'm not knocking her presence at all. But in terms of which interaction, which interplay, I like when people get frustrated with Bond and not because he's being, too emotional. It's just like, just do your job. Like, I don't know. There's something about M saying it that M saying it doesn't achieve.
Yeah, I think the closest Judy came to emulating
Goldeneye.
Lee in terms of being friendly, chiding, is because often she's very genuinely angry with him. But I feel the closest she came to friendly chiding is when she calls him the sexist, misogynist dinosaur, and yet she turns around right after that and fully trusting him says, "I want you to find Goldeneye. I want you to find who took it, what they plan to do with it, and stop it." Even though she could still needle him in a friendly way there, and I wish they kind of had more of that kind of thing, because she's again often very angry with him. But yeah, you can't have a 60th anniversary Bond stream without mentioning Bernard Lee and Judi Dench.
Or Judi Dench, absolutely, no argument. And that is one of my favorite interactions between Bond and M. But there are so many others.
How about who's your favorite Moneypenny?
Lois Maxwell all the way. Yeah.
It's so difficult. I want to say, and I don't even know her name, but she's the Timothy Dalton Moneypenny.
I was thinking Samantha. But
Samantha Bond.
really
Samantha Bond is on
was-
my list.
was
Like Lois
Brosnan.
Maxwell,
I
Samantha
will never
Bond,
forgive them, though.
and the Living Daylights one.
I will never forgive them for having Lois Maxwell's final scene as Moneypenny sitting in her chair crying because she thinks Bond is dead. It's like, come on, you knew you weren't going to have her back at that point. And that's
we're all sad. She got to attend her own last appearance.
yeah.
It is sad because that is a sort of
She was
taking
really
away from the character, but I don't know. Would you like Lois Maxwell to have returned in The Living Daylights?
No.
Okay, there you
I
go.
just mean that if they knew they weren't gonna, they knew by then that she probably wasn't going to come back, and I'm like, you got to end this more, nicely for her. 'Cause she's been here for
The beginning.
14 films at that
Yeah.
point.
And don't forget,
Oh, Caroline Bliss.
That's right.
I always forget her name. But who was who's the third M? Not
He started.
Robert Brown.
Robert Brown.
Yeah, he started off as the minister
Yeah.
under Bernard Lee, and then took over.
I really liked that there was they never really acknowledged it. He just became M between movies, and it was like, okay, that makes sense. He's been around for a while. He must have been
Well, in
promoted.
the movie immediately following Bernard Lee's death, I think it was For Your Eyes Only, they didn't have M in there. They had Robert Brown there, but he wasn't called M yet because they were
Yeah,
paying.
he was the minister. He was
Yeah.
the
He was
minister.
the minister, and then he became, because he was also, first movie I believe was The Spy Who Loved Me. That
Yeah,
Robert
as
Brown's
that same character. Yeah.
Yeah, and so
Yeah.
then he came back as M later on. And a funny thing, you actually see Robert Brown as M's portrait in No Time to Die. They actually acknowledge that continuity when it's at the wall and wherever it is that
Yes.
Valerie is, which is I'm like, oh look, it's Robert Brown.
Yeah,
It was yeah.
It's sort of awkward.
Oh, and
Why?
my one last.
Why? What happened with Robert Brown? Did he get what? Is he okay?
No. I'm just saying because of the fact that it's mashing these two supposedly different continuities together.
I like what you said at the beginning of this entire shenanigan.
Like at the beginning,
Use your imagination. Piece it together. Does it
Well,
have
it's
to be
kinda
laid out?
Yeah.
Casino Royale when he wins the DB5 and it's the left driving car, and then the one he has in Skyfall is the gadget filled one that's the right side driving. And then for some reason, when he retires from Inspector, he's allowed to take the Q branch version of the car with him, and then it gets he still has No Time to Die. So it's like that's clearly not the same DB5 that he won in Casino Royale, but again, they had him win it in Casino Royale because they wanted to play a fun fourth wall breaking tip of the hat, saying, "Hey guys, this is where he got his DB5. Yeah, he just totally stole it from this prick," or something like that. Or not steal, but you get the point.
Yep. One.
And my last desire, I should have said for the next Bond film, they say lightning doesn't strike twice, but it has. And everything comes in threes. So they must bring back Martin Campbell to resurrect the franchise one more time.
I agree.
Yeah. Also,
I guess it's up to Martin.
I'm gonna put my foot down on this. I want Bond to drive a Bentley again. I want him to go back to driving a Bentley because I think the last film we drove a Bentley and was Goldfinger, right? At the start of Goldfinger.
Yeah.
Is that the last time he drove a Bentley?
So.
Possibly.
Yeah, they should do that. I mean, they keep playing that. Like they brought the DB5 back enough for nostalgia's sake. It's like, okay, they've done that. Time to move on to another car.
A nice racing green Bentley.
Okay. Are there sports Bentleys now?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm not a car guy, which is weird that I'm on a James Bond thing. I just like what I want a what is it? A Citroen?
Yeah,
the 2CV. The yellow 2CV.
Yeah, that's what I want.
Made from
I would
corrugated
want
iron.
I would want the V8 Vantage Volante. That's such a cool car.
Oh, with the skis on?
Have that as a bonus.
Yes. That would be fantastic. Oh, and again, going back to Dalton, the whatever car in Living Daylights with the lasers and it cuts the police car in half and
Volante, yeah.
Is that it? Is that the one you were just saying? Oh my God! See, you know the words, and you know the serial numbers. But yeah, that is salt corrosion. Loved that car. Like that's fantastic.
Yeah,
obviously, the Lotus Esprit.
Yeah, that car looked so good when they brought it back in No Time to Die. It was so gorgeous to see it. I understand it's a slightly different. They tweaked it a bit in terms of something about the model, but it still looked amazing. It's like, I need more of that.
Sorry, when you said the skis, I was thinking of when the skis were on the back of the one car.
Oh,
And, and it's like if you were to open the trunk, it would break the skis or something like that, or the glass or whatever. That's what I thought of, and I forget what car that was in
I
For
think
Your
that
Eyes
was
Only.
in Majesty's, wasn't it? When Tracy shows up,
Oh, it might have been Tracy as well.
car chase.
I remember it for your eye, from
It
your
might
eye.
have been. It might have been Livingdale. I forgot. I can't remember.
You see, now that's another thing. I want to see him skiing again. I want to
Yes.
see a good skiing scene, because it's
Yes.
like, I think there are a list of things that we want to see in a Bond film, right? Now, here's the thing, right?
Yeah.
When it comes to the Bond villain, the next Bond villain, do you want it to be crazy volcano lair, big spider in the middle of the ocean, crazy villain, or do you want it to be more sort of low key?
I'd want it to be more along the lines of like a Red Grant, low key, because he was an iconic character. But yeah, he was always in the shadows, and he didn't really get the best time to shine. Like he shows up, he's like, "How you doing, old man?" It's like, no, we need to see him. I would love to. Like they always tease the Bond villain. Some of the best villains are the reflections of Bond, but because of the formula, they don't really get to go toe to toe. Because I think it was Tom Mankiewicz said that the first draft of the script for Man with the Golden Gun didn't have any of the Solex agitator stuff. It was just a cat and mouse game between Bond and Scaramanga, which sounds like that would be really cool.
Yeah.
So I would
yeah.
like a low key movie.
What about a remake of Man with the Golden Gun?
Well,
They
yeah.
did that in Skyfall, but yeah, they could do it again.
Oh, they kind of did, didn't they? Oh, yeah. Okay, fair enough. No,
But
yeah,
they could.
no.
But I would like. But like you said, the book version, the novel version is very different, and that would be
Yeah.
fun for cat and mouse thing. You know.
Yeah, I mean, it's basically, him going out, and it's all set in America as well. Well, no, some of it is set in the West Indies. In fact,
Yeah.
the last bit is, which is a
Yeah.
big plot point in the latest book by Anthony Horowitz. The latest Bond book by Anthony Horowitz is a big thing about him in because again it's another book where he apparently fakes his death at the end of it, because it's you're again it was, I think he is badly wounded at the end of Man with the Golden Gun, because he spoiler alert, he kills Scaramanga with like a derringer. No, the other way around, right? Scaramanga has a derringer,
Mm-hmm.
and he
Shoots.
he shoots Bond. Bond gets
Shot.
shot with a gun. Yeah, and
I don't know why that was so tough.
And that is a big plot point in.
Well, when was it published?
Man with the Golden Gun?
Yes.
58.
No, it was 60.
Sorry if a book from the 50s
Oh, no,
is
you're
going
right,
to
you're
be
right, no,
spoiled.
No,
No,
it was
sorry, you're right. Yeah,
64.
it was one of the last books. Yeah,
Then
he
64.
Yeah, he had finished writing it and then he died.
that's right.
is-
It's the last book. That's right. So I was getting
Spoilers for a
confused.
58-year-old book
I was getting confused
that was
with
made into a
Goldfinger.
movie.
I was getting confused with Goldfinger because of Trigger.
Oh, that reminds me. Cheers, Ian Fleming. I can't not do that.
Oh, right. I forgot. Heavens. Thank you.
But what about you, Scott? What do you want to see from the next Bond villain?
Ooh. I kind of, remember in Thunderball when Emilia Largo goes into like the front of where Spectre has their meeting, and then they go in and then they go down into the crazy place, and that I want to see. And then you see somebody go and influence someone of power and be like, oh no, we have the Americans in our back pocket. We know what it is, like a special executive for counterintelligence, terrorism, revenge, and extortion.
And
Like I want to see in a small fucking room, and this is it's an I know we've kind of done Spectre to death, but I want to see something where it is an actual like I want to not grandiose. I want to see more of the
Like a small
spycraft.
collective of like criminal hackers or something like that who are connected with the right people.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I think that would be cool. And it would be, even
would
if
be
it
cool.
was like just, Imagine the IT crowd, but villains. You know what? I want in the next James Bond movie. I want the villains from Hudson Hawk.
Well, to tell, there was a really bad video game called GoldenEye Rogue Agent.
I love that game.
I've heard of it. I've never played it.
It's not the worst game ever, but it is pretty good. But the coolest thing about that is it's got all of the villains basically working together, and I think you could do something really fun with that.
Yeah,
so you could basically kill off Bond at the beginning of the movie and have all of those characters.
Goldfinger versus Dr. No, and then you're kind of in the middle, and Scaramanga helps you with the gold. I agree the plot is very wacky, but I love that. I like that there's only 8 missions, because each mission, excluding the first one, Fort Knox, they're very long. And it's like, it feels like a marathon each level with all the objectives, and all the multiplayer maps of all the classic Bond locations. Is so cool.
Yeah, that was cool.
That I agree. The story was definitely hokey, and
but it was kind of fun. It was kind of fun to see all those characters interacting. It was quite a fun idea.
Sort of like when they did 007 Legends, which was like one-off levels from each of the
films. Yeah.
That would be again, like with the video games that I played, GoldenEye, obviously. The Tomorrow Never Dies game was terrible.
Yeah.
I played Nightfire, which was awesome. Like the ones with Brosnan, the Brosnan era, that
was pretty good. That was the same vein as GoldenEye.
World Is Not Enough wasn't bad. Wasn't bad.
What was the Craig? What was the Craig game that was? It wasn't.
Bloodstone?
It was
Bloodstone, yeah.
Yeah, that was set between 2 films, right?
Yeah, set between was it Casino and Quantum?
I think so. Yeah.
Before they knew it was going to be a direct sequel. Kind of like when they made the Casino Royale game, they found out they weren't going to have it finished in time for the movie. So then they decided, well, we'll just extend your time. And then they gave them the script for Quantum. So then they put the Quantum game in there. So they combined the 2 of them in one game.
Yeah.
I'd love to play that. I think that would be really fun to play.
And then they just called it Quantum of Solace. I thought it was mostly a bit uninspired. It was basically, get from point A to point B, kill as many people as you can type of thing. I didn't think it was as creative as it could have been.
Now, my question is, while you're doing all of this, is there James Bond themes playing?
Yeah, they have. I believe so.
So it's a basically you're just sitting there shooting things while listening to James Bond music?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's not to like?
Well, I like that in GoldenEye, you have actual objectives you have to complete.
That's true.
Like, you have to use your gadgets. You have to be stealthy. You have to go take photographs, disable security. It's not just run in guns a-blazing.
Yeah, and that's what...
I think that's kind of what ran the video games into the ground the first time around, because eventually they just weren't selling as many and the reviews weren't as good because it wasn't as creative as the first few. And
with Tomorrow Never Dies, I should say that everybody was waiting for sort of GoldenEye 2.
Yeah, and that was also
out
on the PlayStation instead of Nintendo, and it was just so the whole gameplay and appearance was different. And just
you know what would be a really cool idea, right?
What's this?
So right, you're talking about Felix Leiter.
Yes.
What about a Bill Tanner TV series that runs in tandem with the film? So
call us, Amazon.
It's the film comes out, right? And there's a streaming series or a TV series while the film's in the cinema, and it is Bill Tanner. So you'll see Bill Tanner come in the film, once, but then this whole series is happening while Bond is out doing what he does.
That sounds really fun.
and Tanner's just sort of just got to deal with all, because he's basically the agent, and Bond is the intelligence officer. So he's the one that's getting the information to Bond. So he's out there.
He and his cats.
Yeah. So while Bond's out there, going out there doing the mission, Tanner is out sort of doing the legwork. And I think that could be really interesting.
That is interesting, and I do have a counter proposal. Unfortunately, I think that entertainment has already taken this idea away from me. What is Bruce Wayne's butler's name?
Alfred Pennyworth.
Last name? Okay, so I can still get Moneypenny. So I can still have Moneypenny the show.
Well, they do have an Alfred Pennyworth show.
They do. I'm
that's
sorry.
yeah.
Anyway, just funny names. So no, but
Moneypenny.
Moneypenny the show, and you get.
But so she's doing M's laundry, and no, she's not. She's
Naomi
going-
Harris Moneypenny.
She's going to the betting shop and she's putting a bet on the 215 at Cheltenham. And then
Going
she's
to the gun range to practice to be a better shot.
Yeah, and then
I
and
would
then
I
she's
would
coming
watch
back.
at least a season of Naomi Harris going to the shooting range
not
and
just a season. I'd watch a multiple series of that one, kids.
She's
bingo.
typing.
Yes,
Because she's not
just
very,
type.
because she's sort of a failed agent. She's
Come
not
on,
actually
we're
a
at
very good
MI6, everything's
secretary,
voice
so she
activated
uses
now.
2 fingers.
Sorry, I didn't mean to talk over you.
I think it'd be quite funny.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, wouldn't it be funny if Moneypenny actually wasn't that good a secretary?
Well, she's not a good shot.
Uh,
And it's like M just keeps her around because she's like his niece or something.
well, like Inspector when he walks by and he's like, "Oh, what's that on your desk? Was it your birthday?" And he's like, "No, sir." And he's like, "Oh, good." And then she's like, "That was last week."
Oh man, I don't know. Would she go out? Who does she go out and hang out with when she's not being all Moneypenny?
Well, she had a boyfriend or somebody in Spectre.
Yeah. Who plays him?
I don't know.
Johnny Lee Miller.
Yeah, that is probably it. Yes.
Why not? He's not doing Elementary anymore. Any thoughts on Austin Powers?
What
You know-
year, what year did Skyfall? I mean, what year did Quantum Solace come out?
2008.
Yes.
So so Bloodstone is between Quantum of Solace and
Skyfall. Okay.
Skyfall. Yes. Sorry, carry on.
I also played 007 Racing for the PlayStation.
Yeah.
I liked it. It was tough, but the animations for the characters was great and the music was good. Again,
I'm sorry,
you're driving a car.
What was your question?
Was there a question involved? No.
You asked me a question like a minute ago or something. Or you asked the panel a question.
Probably. Sounds like something I would do. I've completely forgotten because I started thinking about the video games again because Tony brought up Bloodstone.
Let's see.
Does anyone?
No. No one's watching. This is fantastic. How are you guys doing? Or, you know what, please, chat. Hey, Jill says, thank you. I appreciate the acknowledgement. Jill, thank you for being here. GoldenEye 64 was fun.
Yes.
It was.
I did finish it all the way through on
Even
my
the
own.
bonus
But
missions?
again, sorry?
Even the 2 bonus missions?
What are the 2 bonus missions?
Hugo
No, I just kicked Alec off
Dra-
the bridge.
Hugo
Oh,
Drax's
no.
Aztec complex and then the Egyptian temple with Baron Samedi.
Probably, maybe. I don't remember that part. I just remember how tough it was to fight down Alec Trevelyan into the dish.
Hmm.
After that, it was just shooting again, right?
Yeah.
Oh wait, never mind. You played the Daniel Craig version?
64.
Yeah. I didn't finish that one.
Oh, okay. So you did play the 64 one. Okay.
Yes, I did play the 64 one, but I was never good in deathmatch, as I said. But it would be fun to revisit it. Although, you know what? When they had the Wii remake of it, I got the gun for it and everything like that to try and do sort of a, different controller, what the Wii was made for.
Yeah.
And not that good.
No, not at all.
It was a good idea, but it wasn't that good.
The Wii was one of those things. It was like on paper it was perfect for first person shooters, but in reality, that one with the sword and the gun was actually quite fun.
Were you
For
a
about
vampire
10
in that one?
No, you were like an assassin.
Cool.
I think.
Sounds like a guy with a sword and a gun. Sure.
Something like it was basically Deadpool, but without being called Deadpool.
Right. And I just thought it would be. You're right. Like for first-person shooters, you thought that Nintendo was going to redo it, but Rare didn't do it. And even when they re-released like the Rare sort of best of hits, the greatest hits, archives, if you will, yes. And they didn't include GoldenEye on it because of the heavy association with Nintendo. So
Yeah.
you figured that if Nintendo was going to do it again, they would do it well, and they didn't, and I didn't like it. But it would have been perfect for Wii if it worked. What else did I play? And there was the one with Willem Dafoe. There was a video game with Willem Dafoe.
And Richard Kiel came back for that one too. That was Everything or Nothing.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
I
that
really
was fun. That was fun.
Yeah, that was fun. I also really liked Nightfire.
Third
That was a
person.
fun one. Great multiplayer.
Yeah.
Some really fun missions. I can't remember the plot of it for the life of me.
Oh god, no! I remember there was a lot of lifts. There were a lot. It's like there was wasn't there one? Oh god, I'm getting it. See, the thing is, Nightfire and Rogue Agent kind of merged together in my head. I can't remember which is which.
Okay, hear me out. The next movie, or spin-off movie that we have, or television series, again, hire us, Amazon. What you have is a CIA agent with not NASA training, all right? And she does adventures not only on Earth, but in space as well. You'll remember her best from Moonraker. She's Holly Goodhead, the television show Goodhead. I think that would sell tickets.
Because and it'll be get ready for
Goodhead. And it'll just the teaser trailer is just Roger Moore. Oh, a woman.
this September. You can look forward to
Goodhead.
What are you gonna do in this new season? No, that's not good.
Well, no, it's fine. It's good. Head. Anyway,
there's nothing like.
If we're doing spin-offs, there's nothing like Goodhead.
Okay, the difference between the Rogue Agent and Nightfire is that Rogue Agent is the one where you, as GoldenEye, team up with Scaramanga and Goldfinger to go after Dr. No, and Zenyatta and other people. Nightfire is telling its own original story with characters, and it's not trying to cross over with anything else. And it had to do with.
But I mean, a lot of the levels were very similar.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah, like there was a dam in one of them.
Yeah, that Hoover Dam in the
that
Rogue
was
Agent.
Rogue Agent, right?
That was a great game. A great level.
Yeah.
This Thursday on Amazon Prime, she's a killer, and she doesn't just like it; she loves it. On a top.
I really thought that was going to be Goodhead.
No, I was trying to switch it up. We could. All the names are puns. You could do it with all of them. Oh my stars!
She hands it out left. She hands it out right. She's gonna give you
Octopussy.
no. Okay, no. Don't like it.
No, she's gonna give you pussy galore.
Goodhead.
Yeah.
She's gonna. Yeah.
She's gonna give you pussy galore.
Yes.
Jesus.
She's by day she works at a cattery in the center of town. At night she runs around killing people and flying planes and a bodyguard and the head of an elite group of lesbian killers.
She's a pilot for the richest man in the world. You don't get a little pussy, you get galore. And that's the name of the show, Galore.
This is coming just a few weeks after we felt we couldn't say what Cheech Marin says outside the front of the tavern.
These are proper names, Kat.
That's true.
I don't know if maybe Ian Fleming was a dirty old man. Or the writers.
He had his head up his ass at times with his thoughts about, like when he wrote The Spy Who Loved Me.
Oh god, yeah. Oh, Red Steel 2. That was the game I was thinking about with the sword and the gun. Red Steel 2.
Oh, and I remember the cover art, but I never played it. I got the Ghostbusters adaptation for like the Ghostbusters 3. For the Wii, and again, same thing. I used the Wiimote for the.
And that is canon. That is official. I think that is officially canon. Because
I think it was referenced in Afterlife.
It was written by Aykroyd and Ramis.
Yeah.
And mostly by Aykroyd, apparently. But and of course they all came back for it. Even Bill Murray came back for it.
Yeah.
So,
Never finished it because the controls on the Wii were terrible. I should pick it up again.
Yeah, I thought I got it on PC. I think.
Yep.
Anyway, so there are so many things. Have we said favorite song?
Yeah, we went through that.
All right. 3 Blind Mice. Kingston Calypso. I hope. I think that's what I said. And the games. And we've covered the future. Is there anybody else that we have missed in this list?
Terrence Young, great director.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
Rush with Love and Thunderball.
Well, but also Martin Campbell. Like, would you say Martin Campbell is your favorite James Bond director, or is it Terrence Young? Is it Guy Hamilton? Is it John Glenn?
Terrence Young is my favorite, but I think Martin Campbell was very good at breathing life into it when it was desperately needed.
Okay.
Like in GoldenEye's case, there were so many people wondering what would Bond be in a post-Cold War world, and he's like, "Fuck you guys! Of course Bond's still relevant." And then he made GoldenEye, and then with Casino After Die Another Day, people are like, "Oh God, this is a cartoon. This is about what are we gonna do?" And then Casino Royale, "Fuck you guys, I got this." So, and the people who've been saying, "Oh, Bond," not just because he's been killed in the movie No Time to Die, but they're like, "Oh, the franchise is dead to me because of this movie." Blah, blah. You'd be like, it'd be great. It'd be like, fuck you guys. Here comes, what Bond 26,
Yeah. But that's also, like, I know that for me, I'm kind of, when it comes to the Marvel movies, it really is a hard speed bump for me to get over when there is a movie called Endgame and you're moving forward into new phases and seeing new things. Because, like, the movie literally is a period.
Well...
with No Time to Die, No Time to Die ends with James Bond dying. And it may be a major speed bump for people who aren't willing to sort of take that leap of faith into a character that they just saw die.
Yeah.
And I'm curious how they go with it.
Yeah, it is. I think it. This is why I thought they should maybe, have sort of a palate cleanser, and do and maybe do a TV miniseries. But they would never do that.
I hope not.
They said that they never want Bond to be on TV, like
good,
not TV, but as a TV series.
Agreed.
Yeah.
I don't think James Bond is cinematic. James Bond is special. It's the last thing that is special. It's the last thing that you have to wait for. You never know what's coming next. Like, say what you will. If you're a fan, if you enjoy, please, whatever flavor suits you. But there is something about having things doled out to you on a continual basis that it's just like a faucet. And with James Bond movies, even if it's bad, it's still pretty good. There is still care put into it, I think. That's why they take so much time between them. And it is an event when a James Bond movie arrives.
Agreed.
So, if they were to sort of make it so that it wasn't that special anymore, then that's when I'm just going to be like, oh, you did it to them too.
It's like the only film series I can think of where they actually have a huge major press conference just to announce the new movie and the cast and the director.
Sometimes they don't even have a title.
Yeah, I mean, other things like the comic book movies, they do that at things like Comic-Con, but this is like its own special event just for the one movie. That's just something, and it attracts so much prestige no matter how many times they do it, because it's something, like you said, it's a rare thing. It's a treat.
Well, and also, considering there, as you mentioned before, Tony, the world has changed several times over. We are now on His Majesty's Secret Service.
Yeah, that's a thing. I mean, again, every for 60 years, and this is a weird thing, when you have one person on the throne for so long, it's like every iteration of Bond so far has been working for this one person, even though they're actually working for that one person.
But there was a sense of Her Majesty.
Yeah, it's really bizarre. Yeah.
And so that's, and I know, again, Robert Meyer Burnett said or someone in one of the groups, I don't know if he said, so I don't quote him, but I saw somewhere that he is, and they said the next one has to be called that.
Yeah, that was Robert who said that.
He did say that. Okay.
What, on His Majesty's Secret Service?
That's what he would say the next title of the movie should be. Or at least he said it at the time.
Yeah, big ears, maybe.
Well, hey, it's not, well, aside from when he jumped out of an aircraft with the Queen at the Olympics, which was fun.
Well, it was fun also because when they filmed that segment, they didn't think that she would actually be interested in participating. And they were going to use a double for the whole segment, and then she's like, "No, I actually want to do this."
Yeah.
Which is awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really appreciate it. So yeah. It's just going to be weird.
Talking about the Queen, did you hear about? So Paul McCartney did a special concert for her Diamond Jubilee. And it was a special concert, especially for her. And when it was on, she missed it when it was on TV because she was watching Twin Peaks.
That's right.
Fantastic. That is what James Bond was out defending.
Yep.
Anywho. But yeah, so it is. I'm curious to see what happens. I'm glad that we do have to wait. And again, you get rampant speculation. All we're waiting for is who's going to be the next Bond. I don't know. And I'll be pleasantly surprised.
Because honestly, I don't care who it is because how do they play in the movie? That's the thing.
Yeah.
You can picture that as much as you want. You can watch as many SNL skits where they picked the people who were in the tabloid runnings would end up getting to do a skit on SNL or something like that. You can see that as much as you want, but that's not going to matter until you see the movie.
Agreed. And, there was a time where before Daniel Craig, I was like, Clive Owen better be James Bond. And it's like, it's the same thing. You're gonna feel how you feel about who you want, and then you're gonna find out that it's someone that you never dreamed you'd like. No. So it's a fun game. It's something to sort of pay attention to. But yeah.
A lot of people were convinced that he was gonna dye his hair black. For the sequel or for the rest of the films. It was like, oh no, why would he do that? It's like, yeah, I get it. The character generally has dark hair, but so many people were like,
James blonde,
up in arms.
Absolutely.
Even Barbara said Roger Moore was blonde.
Yeah.
And so it's like, I don't know. It's people can get really petty about things.
Well, and it's a special feature on the No Time to Die DVD, and if you just want to see a retrospective of the entire Daniel Craig, check out Being James Bond. It's on YouTube.
Yep.
You guys have seen it.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So, and it really, really great sort of retrospective with honesty towards all of the movies, the ups and the downs of whether you liked it or not, except for No Time to Die, because it's a promotional material for that.
Yeah, exactly.
So if you have any complaints about No Time to Die, this is not the documentary for you.
Wouldn't it have been funny if it was like in the first sentence was like, he dies at the end.
Yeah.
Like in our non-spoiler / spoiler review we did on this channel a year ago, where Scott blurted that out immediately right after we said, "Oh, the first half of this is going to be non-spoiler." Then we'll see.
Non-spoiler.
Scott just blurts that out
Because he did.
You motherfucker.
Yeah. And it's like, it's not even like that. He is like disintegrated.
Yeah, it's funny.
Yeah.
I suspected they were going to kill him from the moment he said he was coming back. But, and I heard the spoiler before the movie came out. But as I was watching it, I still didn't believe it was going to happen.
Yeah.
Oh, as soon as Felix died, I knew.
Yeah.
I
But
was
it's
like, oh, they're just going to kill everybody.
Thing that they're going to do, and that they take risks, and so I like that. So, yeah, we'll see. But it'll be a special occasion, that's for sure.
It will be, absolutely. The 26th. Huh. Something to look forward to. Anyway,
Yeah.
Jill has been playing along, and she has faith in me that I can finish the Ghostbusters video game. Thank
Go
you.
for it.
Well, I'm going to give it a go. Apparently it's short and I can beat it. And also, I'd probably like it better on an Xbox controller, so it'll be fun to hear Bill Murray and the gang.
Yeah.
Harold
Fun-
Ramis.
Fun game. It's a fun game.
Tony, got anything going on the internet? Some tubes that are you?
No, not really. I've just bought 4 more board games. So
Well, I do want to play that James Bond board game. We should get
Yes.
something together for that.
I think we could do that. Yeah, I believe from what I think we only need one person to actually have Tabletop Simulator, and we just basically
Share the screen?
Share the screen. Yeah,
Sounds
That's
good.
From what I remember. Yeah.
Cool. Then I will look into it and see if I can figure out how it works, because it isn't fair to make you be the game master all the time just because you know how to work the software.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, it'd be good.
Yeah.
It'd be good.
So, yeah, we can bounce back and forth, but you're probably going to have to do the first one just so I know what the hell I'm doing. Kat, are you in for that? Do you want to play a James Bond board game?
Absolutely.
Cool. All right, then we'll work that out. And so, hey, remember when we were asking what the hell are we going to do for Martinis, Gadgets, and Guns? Let's play a board game.
Let's.
Okay.
Yeah.
50th anniversary, Mr. Bond.
Happy
Yes.
60th anniversary.
Happy Diamond Jubilee.
Yes, the Diamond Jubilee.
The
Because to
Diamond-
us, Mr. Bond, we are the best.
Kat, do you have a Facebook show, don't you?
Yeah, I got every second and fourth Sunday of the month on the Virtual Cantina Network YouTube channel. There's the Unifying Force, co-hosted by me, our friend David, and Gio. That streams at 8 a.m. Pacific. At that time, and I'm going to be reviewing the Andor show and the watch-alongs every Thursday night on the Celebration Anaheim 2023 Facebook group, and that might be streamed or posted later to YouTube. I'm not sure. And then I'll be reviewing the rest of Andor on Tim's Talk on Sundays at 4:30 Pacific for the rest of that series. That's fun.
Nice. Wow. How are things going in a galaxy far, far away?
Great with Andor, amazing. It's unbelievable. It's like Tony Gilroy just basically bitch slapped all the other shit they've been doing lately and says, "No, this is how you do a TV show." And it is amazing. It's far better. Like, I had no interest in that series when they announced it. I could have cared less, and I was like, "Wow, this is really good."
Yeah. Although that guy's Cyril's mother, bit stagey. You know what I mean?
I haven't watched the latest episode yet, so I only saw her briefly in the 4th episode. But
Yeah.
we'll get to that. But yeah,
All right.
a very fun special episode of Martinis, Gadgets, and Guns for James
Yes.
Bond.
It has been, and thank you so much for everybody here. Thank you for everyone in the chat. Anti-Derivative Jill, Edge of Time, Tiger Stripes, Glacier Mountain Comics, Theodore, Kingston Biskley, me, and thanks again, guys. We hope you enjoyed it. Lurkers, rejoice, and we'll see you next week on, I don't know, when we play a board game. All right, I'll talk to you guys.
Bye.
Thanks.
Arrivederci.
Oh, no, can you do a little knick-knack?
Bonsoir, signor.